Aliens and UFOs have always been really interesting to humans because we like to think that we're special, but maybe we're not. All of us find the unknown really interesting, but also really scary. So it's always fun to think about, what else could be out there. And in this video, I'm gonna go over an iceberg that talks about some alien and UFO stuff. Let's get straight into this. So the first entry we're gonna talk about is Project Blue Book. Project Blue Book was a United States Air Force program established to investigate reports of UFOs and determine whether they posed a threat to national security. It was initiated in 1952 and is the third study of its kind, following Project Sign from 1947 and Project Grudge from 1949. Project Blue Book was headquartered at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base near Dayton, Ohio. Ohio Riz. Guys, am I invited to the Ohio Riz party? Guys, put in the comments right now if I have W Giat Riz or not. Anyways, the primary purpose of Project Blue Book was to collect, evaluate, and analyze UFO sightings and, if possible, to explain them as natural phenomena or just misidentifications of conventional objects. During its run, Project Blue Book compiled reports on more than 12,000 sightings or events, each varying in credibility. Most of these sightings were ultimately attributed to natural phenomena like stars, clouds, or just normal aircrafts, but a small percentage of them, about 6%, were classified as unexplained, leaving open the possibility of other interpretations, including extraterrestrial vehicles. Project Blue Book was discontinued, though, in 1969 following the publication of the Condon Report by the University of Colorado, which concluded that the further study of UFOs was unlikely to be scientifically fruitful and of little interest to the Air Force. This decision was based on the rationale that no UFO reported, investigated, and evaluated by the Air Force posed any significant threat to national security, and that there was no evidence that these sightings categorized as unidentified were actually like extraterrestrial vehicles. But who knows, maybe they were onto something, man. Who knows? Okay, before we get any more into this video, I want you guys to know that I have a Discord. If you didn't know, you can go join that. I have an Instagram, you can go follow that if you want to follow that. Anyways, back into the video. Next up, we have the Greys. The Greys are one of the most recognized types of extraterrestrial beings reported in UFO encounters and alien abduction stories, which means they're probably the most likely to be real because almost like there's so many UFO sightings stories that talk about the Greys. So if they're seen that much, chances are they might be real. They're distinguished by their unique physical characteristics, which include small and slender bodies, usually about 3 to 4 feet tall, with smooth gray skin. Their heads are oversized compared to their frail bodies, and they have large, black, almond-shaped eyes. Typically, Greys are depicted without noticeable external human features like noses, ears, or hair. The behavior of Greys in reported encounters often involves the abduction of humans, where abductees describe being subjected to medical examinations and experiencing telepathic communication. Victims frequently recount feelings of paralysis and invasive procedures during these abductions, which adds to the pretty disturbing nature of their claims. Now, in terms of cultural impact, Greys have become like a staple of popular media. And now, pretty much because of that, that's what people think of when they think of alien usually. Or sometimes they're green, I guess, I don't know. The scientific community largely views the Greys as just a product of modern folklore, influenced by psychological factors, societal fears, and popular culture. But, I mean, you never know. There are some scientists who think the Greys are real, so you never know. And we're gonna get into more in-depth stories about the Greys later on. Don't worry. I'm just scratching the surface now that you gotta stick around for the whole video to get all the info, because I'm not gonna stop here. I'm gonna stop here now, but I'm gonna talk about the Greys more later on, guys. Don't worry. Keep watching. Next up, we got Whitley Strieber. Whitley Strieber is an American writer best known for his horror novels and his works on alleged alien abduction experiences. Born on June 13th, 1945, Strieber first gained public attention as a horror novelist with bestsellers like The Wolfen and The Hunger, both of which were later adapted into films. However, it's his later work in the realm of UFOs and extraterrestrial encounters that has cemented his place in popular culture. Strieber's most influential book, Communion: A True Story, was published in 1987 and describes his own purported experiences with non-human entities. The cover of the book, featuring a striking image of an alien face, has become iconic in UFO circles. In Communion, Strieber refers to his encounters with these beings as the Visitors, a term which he prefers over the more conventional aliens. He details complex, transformative experiences with these entities, which he does not conclusively define as extraterrestrial, leaving open the possibility of other origins such as interdimensional. So he's saying maybe these visitors or aliens or whatever are from actual other dimensions. Following Communion, Strieber wrote follow-up books where he continued to explore his experiences with the broader implications they could have for understanding consciousness and the nature of reality. His writings often blend the speculative with his personal narrative, so it's kind of like a mix, I guess. But he was just really famous for his war ballpark into describing what aliens could be like. Strieber's approach to the subject of alien abduction and his subsequent discussions about it has been pretty influential, but also kind of controversial. He's been a frequent guest on various radio shows and podcasts, introducing his own show where he discusses topics related to UFOs, the paranormal, and altered states of consciousness, which, if you're into that, stay tuned to my channel, UFO Iceberg, coming out soon. However, though, losers are going to be losers, scientists are going to be party poopers, so despite his following and the impact of his books, skeptics often question the veracity of his claims because of the lack of actual evidence, blah blah blah, whatever, dude. Shut up, dude. Evidence, who cares? Yo, y'all mess with Blade, bro? Yo, listen to Blade. If you're a Blade fan, put it in the comments and I'll pin you. First Blade lyric to appear in my comments gets pinned. I'll be waiting when this comes out. All right, next up we have Area 51. Area 51 is a highly classified United States Air Force facility located within the Nevada Test and Training Range. Officially, the base's primary purpose is undisclosed. However, historical evidence suggests that it is used primarily for the development and testing of experimental aircraft and weapon systems. The secretive nature of the facility has made it a central element of modern UFO conspiracy theories. The origins of Area 51 date back to 1955, when it was established by the Central Intelligence Agency, or the CIA, as a testing site for U-2 reconnaissance aircraft. The area was selected for its remoteness, which helped maintain secrecy around sensitive projects. Over the decades, it's believed that other advanced military technologies like the A-12 and F-117 Nighthawk stealth fighter were also developed and tested there. Area 51 gained significant public attention in the late 1980s when Bob Lazar, a self-proclaimed former employee, claimed he worked on reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology at a site near Area 51. Lazar's descriptions of alien spacecraft and his assertions about the US government's knowledge of extraterrestrial beings propelled Area 51 into the limelight as a supposed center of alien activity. Although Lazar's claims are widely disputed and lack corroborating evidence, they've fueled a pretty ongoing speculation about what really happens at Area 51. The US government's long-standing policy of secrecy regarding Area 51 has only made it more scary and interesting, The fact that they won't say anything about it makes it more suspicious. For example, because of their secrecy, there have been suggestions that the facility houses alien spacecrafts and possibly even alien life forms, either alive or deceased. The intense secrecy surrounding the base has made it almost impossible for these theories to either be confirmed or debunked, though, so we'll never really know. In 2013, the CIA officially acknowledged the existence of the base for the first time, releasing documents that confirmed it was used for testing spy planes. Despite this, the place is still really mysterious, though, we don't know what really happens there. Next up, we got the Ariel School UFO. The Ariel School UFO incident is one of the most compelling and widely discussed cases in UFOlogy. It occurred on September 16th, 1994 at Ariel School, a primary school in Rubwa, Zimbabwe, about 22 kilometers from the capital, Harare. This incident is particularly notable because of the large number of witnesses, which is approximately 60 school children who reported seeing a UFO and strange beings during their morning break. According to the students' accounts, they observed several flashing lights and a craft landing or hovering near the school's playground. The children described the craft as a large, shiny, silver object. Shortly after the object landed, they saw one or more beings described as small and dressed in tight black clothing walking around the craft in the nearby area. The beings were said to have large eyes and heads resembling the popular depiction of aliens known as Greys. See, I told you, I didn't lie. I told you they were going to come back. The children reported that the beings seemed to communicate with them telepathically, instilling messages about the environment and technology. The entire encounter was brief, lasting only about 15 minutes before the craft and its occupants disappeared. The Ariel School incident was investigated by several UFO researchers, including Harvard psychiatrist Dr. John Mack, who specialized in studying the psychological effects of alleged alien abduction experiences. Dr. Mack interviewed the children and found their accounts to be consistent and credible. He noted that the children were visibly distressed by their experience, which lent further authenticity to their accounts, in his view at least. In my view, I agree, dude. The incident attracted international attention and has been the subject of various documentaries and research studies. Skeptics suggest that the children may have been influenced by each other or by the UFO and alien stories prevalent in the media at the time, though. But still, many researchers continue to cite the Ariel School incident as one of the most convincing cases of potential extraterrestrial contact. So I guess we'll never know, man. I mean, I think it's pretty compelling. I don't know, dude. Next up, we got Mothman. The Mothman is a legendary creature reportedly seen in the Point Pleasant area area of West Virginia from November 12th, 1966 to December 15th, 1967. By the way, guys, I'm saying Point Pleasant this time. Okay, in my other video, I talked about Mothman, right? And I said Point Pleasure, right? I said that because it was funny, but I got like 100 comments that were all saying, it's actually Point Pleasant. Yeah, dude, I thought it was funny to say Point Pleasure. It's a funny word. Point Pleasure is funny. Anyways, whatever. The first newspaper report was published in the Point Pleasant Register dated November 16th, 1966, titled, quote, "Couples see man-sized bird creature something," unquote. Mothman is often described as a winged humanoid on two legs. Despite its name, though, it's not moth-like. Its name was a nod to a popular villain from the Batman television series airing at the time, so it's not actually looking like a moth. The creature's most notable features include large glowing red eyes, a large wingspan, and the absence of a head, with his eyes set in the chest. The legend of the Mothman began on November 15th, 1966, when two young couples from Point Pleasant, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Millette, reported seeing a large white creature with glowing eyes in the TNT area, which is like a former World War II munitions plant. Over the next few days and months, more sightings were reported in the same areas. The Mothman was often associated with a wide array of paranormal occurrences, including strange lights in the sky and encounters with entities identified as Men in Black, which added some obvious mystery and conspiracy theories. The peak of the Mothman phenomenon culminated in the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15th, 1967. This tragic event, which resulted in the deaths of 46 people, was later connected to the Mothman sightings by lore, suggesting that the creature was either a harbinger of doom or somehow directly involved in the catastrophe. John Keel popularized this legend in his 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies, in which he described his investigation into the sightings and connected the Mothman with supernatural theories and government cover-ups. The book was then adapted into a 2002 film starring Richard Gere, which made it really popular, and that movie is now pretty popular. But despite its mythical status, explanations for the Mothman vary from misidentified fauna, such as a large bird, perhaps an unusually large heron or a sandhill crane, to purely psychological phenomena like mass hysteria. The annual Mothman Festival in Point Pleasant, established in 2002, celebrates the legend and attracts tourists and enthusiasts. And guys, you know what? I'll go to that. I'll go to that. When I hit 1 million subs, I'll go to that, to the annual Mothman Festival in Point Pleasure, guys. So subscribe to see me go there. I'll vlog it. Next up, we have the jinn. The concept of the jinn is an ancient one that originates from pre-Islamic Arabian religion and later became incorporated into Islamic theology. Jinn are supernatural beings that occupy a parallel world to humans. In Arabic, the word jinn can be translated to mean, quote, hidden from sight or concealed. And this reflects the belief that jinn, while living alongside us in a parallel dimension, are generally invisible to the human eye. Jinn are considered to be made of smokeless fire by traditional Islamic accounts, in contrast to humans who are made of earth. According to the Quran, jinn are like humans in that they have free will and as such can choose to be good, evil, or neutrally benevolent. The existence of jinn is taken for granted in much of the Islamic world, and these beings are often mentioned in the Quran and Hadith. They're capable of believing in God, and they can convert to Islam if they want. Culturally, jinn have been blamed for various kinds of misfortunes, illnesses, and unexplained phenomena. People traditionally believe that jinn could possess individuals, cause diseases, or alter mental states, and exorcisms in Islamic practice often involve the expulsion of jinn from the body. In Western culture, jinn are often conflated with the concept of genies, as popularized in tales like Aladdin from the 1001 Nights. In these stories, jinn are typically trapped in lamps or bottles, and they can grant wishes when summoned. This Western portrayal simplifies and alters the traditional Islamic understanding pretty significantly, though, adding the elements like the wish granting and stuff that really aren't in the original context. Next up, we have David Grush. David Grush, a former US military intelligence official, made headlines when he came forward with claims regarding the US government's knowledge of UFOs, or UAPs, which stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena. His testimony was part of a broader public disclosure movement that has been gaining momentum in recent years, especially following official acknowledgments and releases of UAP-related footage by the Pentagon. Grush claimed that he was tasked with a role that involved access to highly classified information regarding UAPs. According to his statements, he was exposed to evidence suggesting the US government has been aware of and studying non-human technology for decades. His claims included assertions about the existence of materials and technologies that are not of human origin and are far beyond the current capabilities of known science. These technologies purportedly include advanced propulsion systems that could change our understanding of physics and engineering. And the significance of Grush's claims lies in their potential implications for technology technology, national security, and our understanding of what might be possible in terms of energy and transportation. However, like many whistleblower claims in the realm of UAPs, verifying the accuracy and authenticity of what he's saying is kind of challenging. The claims often rely on classified information that can't be independently confirmed by the public or by most media outlets. So he whistleblew, but we don't really have proof of it exactly. Next up, we got missing time. Missing time is the phenomenon commonly associated with UFO sightings and alleged alien abductions. It involves an unaccounted period during which individuals can't recall events, often discovering a significant lapse between their last memory and their current moment. This can range from a few minutes to several hours or days. Typically, those experiencing missing time are doing ordinary activities when they suddenly find themselves later in time without memory of the period that they were in. The onset of missing time is frequently linked to a peculiar or unsettling event. Individuals might report seeing an unusual light, encountering strange objects in the sky, or experiencing sudden feelings of disorientation or transportation. These incidents lead them to feel as though they were taken from their normal environment, though they often have no concrete memories of what occurred during the time that they can't account for. And then upon realizing that the time is missing, individuals often feel confused, anxious, or compelled to make sense of the experience. The phenomenon is extensively documented in UFOlogy with numerous personal testimonies and anecdotal accounts. Despite its frequent mentions and reports of alien encounters, the concept of missing time is still pretty elusive and largely unexplained in scientific terms. Nobody knows why it happens. Next up, we have Marian apparitions. Marian apparitions are reported events where individuals or groups believe they have seen the Virgin Mary. While these experiences are traditionally viewed through a religious lens, some people within the UFO research community consider these apparitions from a different perspective. They suggest that these events could be related to UFOs or encounters with beings from other worlds. This ufological perspective arises from noticing similarities between Marian apparitions and descriptions of UFO encounters. Both kinds of events often involve bright lights and figures descending from the sky, and both tend to have a profound impact on those who experience them. In UFO cases, people report seeing spacecraft or interacting with alien beings. In religious visions like Marian apparitions, the figures and messages are interpreted through the lens of faith and spirituality. Some UFO researchers propose that historical events recorded as religious visions might be early accounts of encounters with extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings. They theorize that people from past centuries might have interpreted these beings as being divine figures like the Virgin Mary because that was familiar and made sense within their cultural and religious context. This approach does not seek to undermine the religious or spiritual significance of Marian apparitions, but rather to explore the possibility that human beings might interpret mysterious advanced phenomena in a religious framework. So it's not trying to be offensive to the religion of Christianity, but and as a Christian, I should be offended. But yeah, dude, praise Jesus, man. Anyways, next up we have lost evidence. The term lost evidence often emerges in discussions about UFO sightings and encounters where it refers to supposed physical proof or crucial data that has mysteriously disappeared or was deliberately taken, or hidden, you could say. This concept plays a significant role in many UFO narratives and conspiracy theories, suggesting that there might be a concerted effort to conceal the truth about extraterrestrial activities from the public. In the context of UFO research, lost evidence can include photographs, videos, government documents, or even physical remnants of unknown objects, which witnesses or researchers claim to have obtained but which later go missing or are confiscated. The disappearance of such evidence is frequently attributed to actions by governmental or military agencies. The alleged goal behind such actions is to prevent public panic or to maintain control over advanced technologies that are beyond current human understanding, because the government's hiding it. This notion is compelling for many who follow UFO stories because it points to a larger narrative of secrecy and manipulation by authorities, which kind of enhances the mystique and the ambiguity surrounding UFO phenomena. Stories of lost evidence contribute to the ongoing debate over transparency and accountability in the handling of UFO information. They fuel discussions in both the public sphere and among enthusiasts and researchers who demand more openness regarding encounters with unexplained phenomena. Critics, however, again, because they're always party poopers and losers and lames, argue that claims of lost evidence can sometimes serve as a convenient excuse for the lack of solid proof supporting extraterrestrial visits. Skeptics suggest that without tangible evidence that can be analyzed scientifically, such stories should be approached with caution, blah blah blah, you're a loser. They point out that the absence of evidence is not necessarily evidence of absence, and emphasize the need for critical thinking and rigorous standards in investigating these UFO claims. Dude, quit being such a loser, bro. These people being like that, dude, screw evidence, man. Screw that stuff, bro. We don't need that. Dude, don't need that. Next up, we have Bible UFOs. When you look at the Bible through the lens of UFOlogy, it's pretty fascinating to think about how some of the events described might be interpreted as encounters with extraterrestrial phenomena. This perspective isn't mainstream, but it's a topic that captures the imagination of those who are both into ancient texts and the possibility of alien life. For instance, the biblical accounts of fiery chariots, whirlwinds from the sky, and bright clouds leading people through the desert have sometimes been viewed by UFO enthusiasts as potential descriptions of alien spacecraft. A famous example is the vision of Ezekiel, where he describes a complex flying machine coming from the sky, accompanied by the sounds of roaring and surrounded by bright lights. This imagery has sparked a lot of debate about whether Ezekiel might have seen something more technologically advanced than anything known in his time. Maybe it wasn't a vision, maybe it was just a UFO. Then there are the angels described throughout the Bible, beings from the heavens who communicate messages from God and interact with humans in critical ways. In a modern UFO context, some suggest these could be interpreted as extraterrestrial beings whose advanced technology and unfamiliar appearance made them seem more like divine or supernatural to people long ago instead of just being aliens. It's important to note, though, that these interpretations are quite speculative and they're not supported by mainstream theology or like actual academic biblical studies. Traditional religious scholars would emphasize that these descriptions are more about divine revelation and the mysterious ways that God manifests himself to humanity. But thinking about it as a UFO is like more of a scientific, I guess, way of looking at these stories from the Bible. Next up, we got the Betty and Barney Hill event. Betty and Barney Hill's story is one of the most famous and thoroughly documented cases in the history of UFO encounters, particularly noted as the first widely publicized report of an alien abduction in the United States. Their experience has captivated audiences and researchers for decades, primarily due to the detailed recollections brought forth under hypnosis and the couple's credibility and sincerity. Back in September 1961, Betty and Barney Hill were driving back to their home in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, after a vacation in Niagara Falls. It was during a nighttime drive through the White Mountains that they first noticed a strange light in the sky. Initially, they thought it was a satellite or a plane, but as it moved erratically and grew bigger and brighter, they realized it was something unusual. The situation escalated when they stopped the car along a quiet stretch of road. Using binoculars, Barney observed what he described as a craft with flashing lights and beings looking out of its windows. Feeling threatened, he quickly returned to the car and they began to drive away. However, both Betty and Barney soon experienced a buzzing sound, which seemed to induce a state of altered consciousness. Their next clear memory was finding themselves 35 miles down the road with little recollection of how they got there, a classic example of missing time. Perplexed and distressed by their experiences, the Hills eventually sought the help of a psychiatrist and neurologist, Dr. Benjamin Simon, who specialized in hypnotherapy. Under hypnosis, both Betty and Barney recounted a detailed abduction experience involving humanoid beings who took them aboard their spacecraft and subjected them to medical examinations. Betty's sessions were particularly intense, as she recalled conversations with the beings and even being shown a star map which she later sketched. The star map Betty described was later analyzed by amateur astronomer Marjorie Fish, who hypothesized that it might depict Zeta Reticuli, a binary star system some 39 light years away from Earth. This analysis, while met with both interest and skepticism, added another layer of intrigue to the Hills' account. Their story, first widely publicized in a 1966 book called The Interrupted Journey and a 1975 television movie, The UFO Incident, has had a profound impact on how alien abductions are perceived, giving rise to an entire subgenre of UFO literature and becoming a fundamental narrative in UFOlogy. This is like a big story, and it's a good one too. It's believable. Next up, we got Foo Fighters. The Foo Fighters are a famous rock band led by the former Nirvana drummer Dave Wait, that's not the right Foo Fighters. Wait a second. The term Foo Fighters was used during World War II by Allied aircraft pilots to describe mysterious aerial phenomena seen in the skies over both the European and Pacific theater of operations. These, quote, Foo Fighters were reported as metallic spheres, balls of light, or other shapes that would accompany the aircraft, often moving at high speeds and performing maneuvers that seemed to defy the then-known laws of physics. The name itself is thought to have originated from a comic strip called Smokey Stover, in which Foo was a term for something mysterious or bizarre. Despite their curious behavior, Foo Fighters were neither confirmed as hostile nor identified explicitly as any sort of known aircraft. These sightings raised concerns among the Allies regarding new Axis powers technology, although after the war, investigations suggested that both sides had actually reported similar sightings, ruling out the idea that they were enemy aircraft. Some researchers suggest they might have been related to natural phenomena such as St. Elmo's fire, a weather phenomenon in which luminous plasma is created by a corona discharge from a sharp or pointed object in a strong electric field in the atmosphere. Others speculate speculate that they could have been the result of psychological stresses experienced by pilots during high-stakes combat missions. In more speculative circles, though, particularly among UFO enthusiasts, Foo Fighters are often considered some of the earliest documented instances of UFO sightings, possibly representing advanced technology, whether terrestrial or extraterrestrial. This viewpoint posits that these incidents were either experimental aircraft tests kept secret by a government or evidence of a non-human intelligence observing human warfare. The legacy of these Foo Fighters also lives on in popular culture. For example, obviously notably inspiring the name of the famous rock band Foo Fighters, like I said earlier, led by the former Nirvana drummer Dave Grohl. That guy's awesome. All right, next up we have winged beings. Winged beings associated with UFO sightings are a less common but pretty intriguing aspect of UFO lore. These reports often blend characteristics from traditional angelic figures with those typical of extraterrestrial encounters, creating a unique subset of UFO mythology. Reports of winged beings often describe them as having humanoid forms with wings, resembling classical depictions of angels or mythical creatures. These beings are sometimes seen emerging from UFOs or often associated with aerial phenomena themselves. The presence of wings can be interpreted in several ways, as literal physical appendages, symbolic features perceived by witnesses under stress, or through cultural filters, or even advanced technology mimicking the appearance of wings. The notion of winged beings in UFO sightings taps into ancient myths and religious texts, where celestial beings often descend from the heavens bearing messages or playing other significant roles. There are several notable cases where witnesses have reported seeing winged figures in conjunction with UFOs. These encounters are typically steeped in mystery, and they often lack the corroborative evidence that is needed for it to be studied extensively. But obviously these are always seen critically usually. So for one example, like the Mothman of Point Pleasant I was talking about earlier, I mean, it's kind of a UFO sighting and he had wings, obviously. There's also the Owlman of Monnon. Similar to the Mothman, the Owlman is reported to have been seen in Cornwall, England starting in 1976. Described as a large owl-like creature with wings and sometimes glowing eyes, it was spotted around the Monnon church by two young girls initially and then by other witnesses. But he could have also been a UFO, he's seen as a UFO along a bunch of circles in UFOlogy. And finally, there's the Falcon Lake incident, and this 1967 encounter in Manitoba, Canada, Stephen McCulloch reported seeing two cigar-shaped objects with a reddish glow. We're gonna get into this more later, by the way, the cigar-shaped objects. And then, upon closer inspection, he encountered what he believed to be a door opening on the side of the craft, emitting bright light. And while there's not actual wings, the bright light does kind of have the same Bible divine thing. I don't know. Winged beings is not exactly a well-documented thing in UFOlogy, but I tried to stretch it for you guys for the video. Next up we have the reptilians. Reptilians, also known as reptoids or lizard people, are a staple of conspiracy theories and UFO folklore, where they are depicted as humanoid reptiles that can shapeshift or disguise themselves as human beings. The concept of reptilians has been popularized by figures like David Icke, a former sports broadcaster turned conspiracy theorist who claims that these beings are part of a secretive extraterrestrial elite that controls human society. Reptilians are said to originate from another planet or dimension, and according to various accounts, they may be native to Earth, living underground or underwater. But also they're probably aliens, UFO Iceberg. Reptilians are often described as being tall, with green scaly skin, and having eyes that resemble those of a reptile. Believers in this theory claim that reptilians have superhuman strength, are highly intelligent, and possess advanced technology. I'm really not going to say much about this. This is kind of, dumb theory. Moving on. Kenneth Arnold is next. Kenneth Arnold is a central figure in the history of UFOs, primarily because his sighting in 1947 is often considered the event that kickstarted the modern era of interest in unidentified flying objects. His experience not only brought the term flying saucer into popular usage, but also triggered a nationwide fascination with UFOs that has persisted for decades. On June 24th, 1947, Kenneth Arnold, a private pilot and businessman, was flying his small plane near Mount Rainier, Washington, when he observed a string of 9 shiny, unidentified flying objects flying past Mount Rainier at a high rate of speed. Arnold estimated that their speed was around 1,200 miles per hour, much faster than any aircraft at the time could travel. He described their movement as if they were saucers skipping on water, which led to the press terming them flying saucers. Arnold's report made headlines across the country, sparking public interest in a flurry of similar sightings reported across the United States. His detailed account and his credibility he had as a respected businessman and experienced pilot lent a new level of seriousness to the topic of UFOs. At that point, UFOs were kind of laughed at, Newspapers, fascinated by his story, helped to cement the idea of flying saucers as a really big part of American culture. The sighting by Kenneth Arnold not only popularized the idea of UFOs, but also helped to shape the direction of UFOlogy as a field. It led to the Air Force's Project Blue Book, which we already talked about earlier. And then Arnold himself remained a really active figure in UFO research and a staunch advocate for taking UFO sightings seriously. So yeah, man, we have a lot to thank to Kenneth Arnold. Next up, we have wands seen used by aliens. The concept of aliens using devices resembling wands is found in various accounts and descriptions within the UFO and alien encounter literature. These devices are often depicted as tools or instruments used by extraterrestrial beings during encounters, particularly in alleged abduction scenarios. In reports where witnesses describe alien beings using wand-like devices, these instruments are typically portrayed as having multiple purposes. They're often said to be used for communication, healing, control, or even as a means of altering the environment or the witness's perception. For instance, abductees have described being healed by instruments that resemble wands, suggesting that these tools could have advanced medical capabilities. Others have reported that these devices can emit light or other forms of energy, potentially used for scanning, examining, or interacting with the environment and individuals. One of the more detailed accounts of an alien wand comes from the alleged abduction of Betty Andreasen Luca, documented in her book The Andreasen Affair by Raymond Fowler. In her detailed recollections, she describes how alien beings used a wand-like device to revive her daughter during an encounter. According to her description, the device emitted a blue light and seemed to have life-restoring powers. The interpretation of these devices varies. In a technological context, they're often seen as examples of advanced extraterrestrial technology that far surpasses human capabilities, potentially integrating functions that involve energy manipulation, matter restructuring, or neurological effects. From a psychological or symbolic perspective, these wands can be viewed as archetypal objects reflecting human myths and stories where wands were like symbols of power and control, so it could just be like fake, you know? You never know. Next up, we got medical experiments on board UFOs. Reports of medical experiments conducted aboard UFOs are a common and particularly intriguing aspect of alleged alien abduction stories. These accounts often involve abductees describing detailed, invasive procedures performed by extraterrestrial beings, purportedly for research or reproductive purposes. One of the most famous and earliest documented cases of one of these abductions involving a medical experiment is that of Betty and Barney Hill we already talked about earlier. While under hypnosis, Betty described a detailed physical examination where the beings took samples of her skin and bodily fluids and inserted a needle into her navel, which they explained was a pregnancy test. Barney similarly recounted a detailed examination focused on his eyes, ears, skin, and teeth. Also, we have Travis Walton. Travis Walton's alleged abduction is one of the most famous cases, largely due to his disappearance for 5 days, which triggered a massive surge in widespread media attention. Walton reported that after being struck by a beam of light from a UFO, he woke up in a hospital-like room being observed by 3 short, bald creatures. He claimed that he was examined and that various tests were performed on him before he was released. Also, we got Whitley Strieber, who we already talked about a little bit. Whitley Strieber offers one of the most vivid accounts of alien abduction. He described undergoing several invasive procedures, including the insertion of a needle into his brain, which he told was kind of like a neurological procedure. His accounts include detailed descriptions of different types of alien beings cooperating in these experiments of these neurological procedures. I mean, I don't know, man. If aliens are real, they probably do have a lot more advanced like a medical technology than we have. Next up, we got hollow earth bases. The hollow earth theory is a fascinating and controversial concept that suggests the earth is either entirely hollow or contains substantial interior spaces. This idea has been part of various myths and legends across different cultures, and it's evolved into a modern fringe theory, sometimes linked to UFOs and other extraterrestrial activities. One of the most cited pieces of evidence in hollow earth theories is what's claimed to be the secret diary of Admiral Richard E. Byrd. According to hollow earth proponents, during Byrd's 1947 flight over the North Pole, he supposedly entered the inner earth and encountered advanced beings who lived in a flourishing ecosystem beneath the Earth's surface. These beings, described as peaceful and technologically advanced, allegedly warned Byrd about the dangers humanity posed to the world due to its nuclear weapons. While this story is widely regarded as just a fabrication or a misinterpretation of Byrd's actual experiences, it remains a popular tale. You know, it's cool, I guess. Also, during World War II, there were rumors that the Nazis believed in ancient theories about the Earth being hollow and conducted expeditions to Antarctica to find an entrance into the inner Earth. And we're gonna talk about more about Nazis in a second here. But conspiracy theories suggest that they were searching for a lost Aryan civilization that supposedly resided within the Earth, which is just hilarious hilarious to me. Like, I mean, I try to be serious about this stuff, the videos, you know, but the Hollow Earth theory, come on. And the idea that Hitler was trying to find an Aryan civilization in the middle of the earth, it's just funny, dude. Come on. That's funny right there, and you can't tell me different. We also have Agartha. Agartha is a legendary city that is said to exist in the Earth's core. It's often mentioned in the context of the Hollow Earth theory and is believed to be a world inside the Earth populated by advanced beings and life forms. Theories about Agartha sometimes include descriptions of flying saucers coming from the inner Earth, suggesting that its inhabitants use these advanced technologies to travel between their world and the surface. So that's saying that a lot of the UFOs we have are not from space, but from inside the Earth. Next up, we have Nazi UFOs. The idea of Nazi UFOs is one of the more intriguing and controversial aspects of World War II history. The concept revolves from the belief that Nazi Germany developed advanced aircraft or spacecraft technology that was far ahead of its time, including flying saucers known as Die Glocke, or the Bell, and other types of UFOs. So Die Glocke, which means the bell in English, is reported to have been a top secret Nazi scientific technological advice, first described by Polish journalist and writer Igor Wachowski in his book The Truth About the Wunderwaffe. According to Wachowski, who claims to have seen translated documents, the bell was a metallic object approximately 9 feet in diameter and 12 to 15 feet high. It was said to emit strong radiation during testing, which could have led to the death of several scientists and animals. The device supposedly used a form of propulsion involving counter-rotating cylinders filled with a mercury-like substance violet in color. This technology is alleged to have capabilities related to anti-gravity or space-time manipulation, bro. This is crazy. Oh, dude. Oh, okay. So I record, I'm listening to music, dude, and freaking Everything Happens to Me by Chet Baker just came on. Oh my god, editor, put a little clip of that song in. This song is crazy. This song gets me crying. I might start crying this recording, guys. Anyways, next up we have Huanbu and Vril discs. These are names given to purported flying saucer prototypes developed by the Nazis. The designs for these crafts were allegedly influenced by esoteric knowledge and ancient texts, and they were claimed to be capable of vertical takeoff, high-speed flight, and perhaps even space travel. Various schematic drawings and documents have surfaced over the years, though their authenticity is pretty highly debated. Enthusiasts of this theory often cite these as evidence of Nazi technological advancements in anti-gravity and aeronautics. Another popular element of the Nazi UFO theory is the claim that towards the end of World War II, the Nazis established a secret base in Antarctica called Base 211. This base supposedly served as a refuge for Nazi leaders and possibly as a testing ground for advanced weapons, including UFOs. Theories suggest that the Nazis continued their operations there after the war, which some say could explain the increase in UFO sightings in the late 1940s and beyond. Alright, next up we have hypnosis. Now, in the context of UFO and alien encounter stories, hypnosis plays a pretty significant role, particularly as a method to recover memories of abductions that are not consciously accessible. This use of hypnosis has been widely applied and heavily debated within the field of UFOlogy. So, hypnosis is often employed by researchers and therapists working with individuals who believe they have been abducted by aliens, but can only recall fragments of the experience or have periods of missing time. The process, sometimes referred to as regressive hypnosis, aims to help the individual recall the hidden details of the encounter. And one of the most famous cases of this happening, again, is Betty and Barney Hill, who we already talked about. But their story popularized the use of hypnosis in UFO abduction research. After experiencing missing time and unexplained distress, the Hills underwent hypnosis sessions with psychiatrist Dr. Benjamin Simon. Under hypnosis, both recalled detailed narratives of their abduction, which we already kind of talked about. The use of hypnosis, though, is very controversial. Critics argue that hypnosis can create false memories, particularly when suggestions are made by the hypnotist. So if you're going through hypnosis and your hypnotist says oh, you remember this, don't you? And it makes you think you did even though you really didn't. I don't know. I mean, I think it can be useful, but it's all scary, right? I mean, it's all scary. Next up, we have triangle UFOs. Triangle UFOs refer to sightings of unidentified flying objects that have a distinct triangular shape. These UFOs are among the most frequently reported types, and they're recognized for their large size and quiet movement. The reports of triangle-shaped UFOs have been particularly prevalent since the 1980s, although there are records of similar sightings dating back further. Triangular UFOs are typically described as large, silent, and black, with rounded or sharp edges. They often display 3 lights at the corners and sometimes a central light. Witnesses usually report these crafts moving very slowly and low to the ground, and they're often noted for their ability to hover in place. The lights in these crafts can vary in color and intensity, and the craft itself sometimes makes a humming or throbbing noise, though it's generally much quieter than conventional aircrafts. One of the most famous incidents involving a triangle UFO occurred in Belgium from 1989 to 1990. During this period, thousands of people reported seeing silent, large, low-flying black triangles. The Belgian Air Force even tracked these objects on radar and scrambled F-16 fighters to intercept them. But the pilots could not keep up with the UFOs. This event is significant because it involved multiple witnesses, including police officers and military personnel, and it was documented with radar data and jet interceptions. So this is like one of the most actually solid proof of this. Another well-documented case is the Phoenix Light incident in 1997, where witnesses observed a massive V-shaped object, which could be described as triangular from certain perspectives, passing silently over several cities in Arizona. This sighting was also seen by thousands of people and remains one of the most famous UFO events in history. I mean, it could be governmental stuff, you know, or it could be aliens, you never know. I mean, who am I to say? This one seems actually kind of realistic. And with that, we are done with layer 1. Let's get straight into layer 2 of this iceberg. So first up in this layer, we have the real Men in Black. The Men in Black are a mysterious and pretty popular part of UFO folklore. They're typically described as strange men dressed entirely in black suits who appear to warn or intimidate individuals who have witnessed a UFO or have too much knowledge about UFOs or aliens. These men often behave oddly, have unusual features, and their presence is usually accompanied by a sense of fear or unease. The concept of the Men in Black first gained widespread attention in the 50s and 60s during the early days of modern UFO sightings. One of the most notable cases involved Albert K. Bender, the founder of the International Flying Saucer Bureau. Bender claimed that he was visited by men dressed in dark suits who warned him to stop his UFO research. Following this encounter, Bender abruptly shut down his research organization altogether. The Men in Black are often portrayed as agents of an unknown government or private entity, with their primary purpose seeming to be to keep witnesses silent about their encounters with UFOs or aliens. But still, nobody knows what they are from, who they work for, or anything. And then over the years, theories about the Men in Black have evolved. Some suggest that they're government agents tasked with maintaining secrecy about UFOs. Others believe they could be aliens themselves, disguising their appearance to interact with humans without causing alarm, and then erasing their memories so they won't remember. And then obviously the Men in Black have permeated a lot of popular culture with the Men in Black film series. But the difference here that's interesting is that in most realistic theories people have that are actually real people have the theories, the Men in Black are the bad guys, you know, they're the ones that are trying to keep the secrets quiet. But in the film series, the Men in Black are the heroes of the stories. All right, next up we have the Nordics. The Nordics, or Nordic aliens, are another element of UFO and alien lore. These beings are described as humanoid extraterrestrials who closely resemble Scandinavians in appearance. They're often depicted as tall with pale skin, blue eyes, and long blonde hair, embodying a peaceful and benevolent demeanor. So basically, Blade is an alien. The concept of Nordic aliens took hold in the 50s, with many alleged encounters reported by individuals claiming to have communicated with these beings. One of the most prominent early witnesses was George Adamski, a Polish-American who claimed to have met a Nordic alien named Orthan in the California desert in 1952. Adamski described Orthan as a friendly figure who warned humanity about the dangers of nuclear weapons. Nordic aliens are often portrayed as highly advanced, both technologically and spiritually. Many people who claim to have encountered with them report receiving messages about the importance of peace, environmental protection, and spiritual development. Unlike other alien types that are often associated with abductions or experiments, Nordics are generally described in a more positive light, sometimes even as protectors or guides for humanity. Like the Men in Black, Nordic aliens have significantly influenced popular culture and UFO conspiracy theories. They're often featured in stories and theories that suggest various extraterrestrial races have distinct roles or agendas concerning Earth. Some ufologists propose that Nordics are in opposition to more malevolent alien species, acting as guardians who help to ensure Earth's survival. So like the Nordics are kind of like Alan the alien, you know, when like the rest of the aliens are like the Viltrumites. If you get my Invincible reference. Anyways, next up we have the Rex Heflin photos. The Rex Heflin photos are among the most debated and analyzed pieces of visual evidence in UFO research. Rex Heflin was a highway maintenance engineer for the Orange County, California Road Department when he took a series of Polaroid photographs in 1965 that appeared to capture a flying disc near Santa Ana, California. On August 3rd, 1965, Heflin was in his vehicle when he noticed an unusual object hovering in the sky. He used his Polaroid camera to snap 4 black and white photographs. 3 of these photos clearly show a hat-shaped object, while the 4th photo captures what seems to be a black smoke ring, which Heflin claimed was left by the UFO as it sped away. The photos gained a pretty significant attention shortly after Heflin made them public. UFO researchers and skeptics alike scrutinized the images. Over the years, these photos have undergone various analyses by both official and independent sources. Some experts suggest the photos were a hoax, possibly involving a model suspended by strings or thrown in the air, while others have defended their authenticity, arguing the object's appearance and characteristics couldn't be easily replicated with the technology available at the time. And then adding to the intrigue, Heflin claimed that shortly after he released the photos, a man who identified himself as a NORAD officer visited him and borrowed the original photographs for analysis, which were never returned to him. This led to further speculation about a cover-up. Decades later, in the late 90s, the originals mysteriously reappeared in his mailbox, which reignited interest in the case. That's crazy, like 30 years later. Subsequent digital enhancements and analyses have provided mixed conclusions, with no definitive evidence like proving or disproving the photos either way. So I don't know, man. See, all this alien stuff is never proven or disproven, bro. Like come on, dude. Just do something with it, bro. You know, come on. Next up, we got sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is a condition where an individual, either upon falling asleep or waking up, find themselves unable to move or speak. They're fully conscious, but temporarily unable to move their muscles. This phenomenon also includes hallucinations, which can be visual, auditory, or sensory. Many reports of alien abductions have elements that closely resemble sleep paralysis. Abductees often describe being unable to move as they see or feel the presence of aliens around them. This has led some researchers and skeptics to propose that many alien abduction experiences might actually be misinterpretations of sleep paralysis episodes. The hallucinatory aspect of sleep paralysis could account for the vivid encounters with extraterrestrial beings that are commonly reported in these experiences. One famous example, again, is Betty and Barney Hill. This might have been sleep paralysis. Like, some aspects of their story, like feeling immobile and seeing strange figures, are similar to descriptions of sleep paralysis. Moreover, the fear and vulnerability that people fear during sleep paralysis episodes contribute to the intensity of the experience, making the hallucinations more vivid and emotionally charged. And when people wake up from the experiences, the realistic nature of the hallucinations can make them certain that it was actually real. And that would make sense why the hypnosis still made it seem real, because in their brain it was traumatic and real to them. But also, I mean, come on, they were driving when that happened, bro. Can you really explain that with sleep paralysis? Whatever. Anyways, next up we have winged snake emblems. In the realm of UFOlogy, winged snake emblems present a fascinating and somewhat esoteric symbol that connects ancient mythologies with modern UFO narratives. These emblems often feature prominently in discussions about I guess ancient astronaut theories, which suggest that extraterrestrial beings visited Earth in antiquity and influenced early human civilizations. And by the way, that means that they just aliens visited people back in ancient times. The winged snake is a symbol found in various ancient cultures across the globe. For example, the Aztec deity Quetzalcoatl, editor, put the word on screen because I can't, often depicted as a feathered serpent, is one of the most well-known representations of a winged snake. Similar motifs can be found in Egyptian, Mesopotamian, and Asian mythologies, which feature serpentine creatures with wings or divine attributes. Now, in UFOlogy, these ancient depictions are sometimes interpreted as evidence of alien visitations. Proponents of the alien astronaut theory argue that the winged snake could be a symbolic representation of alien beings or their aircraft, which ancient people could have perceived as divine or supernatural entities due to their advanced technology and their foreign appearance. So basically, they're just saying that back in ancient times they could have been visited by aliens, but instead of thinking these are aliens, they could have thought oh my god, these have to be the gods, and that's where mythology came from, which is honestly kind of possible. I mean, how can we know? History is so hard to read anyways, because it's only one account has been recovered from each era, you know, because only the winners write the history or whatever. All right, next up. So there's an interesting aspect of UFO encounters involving children. They tend to report seeing UFOs a lot more often than adults. This phenomenon could be attributed to several factors. First, children are generally more open-minded and less conditioned by societal norms than adults. They're curious and they're more likely to notice unusual things in their environment, which adults might dismiss or overlook due to skepticism or just a lack of attention. For instance, consider the famous aerial school sighting in Zimbabwe in 1994, where 62 school children reported seeing a spacecraft and, quote, strange beings during their break time. The children, ranging in age, were playing outside when they witnessed the UFO. They described seeing a small craft and beings with large heads and big oval eyes. Interestingly, the teachers were inside during the incident and didn't witness the event. This case has been widely studied, like we talked about earlier, and it's a pretty significant example of child UFO encounters because of the consistency in the children's accounts, despite their ages and backgrounds. Psychological factors can also play a role though, like children have a rich imagination and they might interpret ambiguous stimuli as more fantastical and extraordinary than adults would. While this doesn't necessarily mean that their experiences are invalid, it suggests that their interpretations can be influenced by their interests and media consumption, such as movies and books about aliens. So it could just be that kids are more willing to see things for what they are and they're not too tied down by what society says is real, or it could just be that they actually have an imagination and they're making up stuff. But I mean, I guess we'll never know, bruh. All right, next up we got Woodrow Derenberger and Lanulos. Woodrow Derenberger's encounter with an alleged extraterrestrial being named Indrid Cold is a fascinating chapter in UFO lore, closely tied to the mysterious planet Lanulos. This incident took place on November 2nd, 1966, when Derenberger, a salesman, was driving home on Interstate 77 near Parkersburg, West Virginia. According to his account, a strange craft resembling a kerosene lamp chimney landed on the road in front of his vehicle, blocking his way. Derenberger claimed that a man emerged from the craft and communicated with him telepathically. This man introduced himself as Indrid Cold and said he came from a planet called Lanulos located in the galaxy of Ganymede. Cold appeared human, wearing a reflective metallic suit, and was described as having a pleasant demeanor. During their conversation, Cold inquired about the city lights and expressed his intention to visit Earth more often. After this initial meeting, Derenberger stated that Cold visited him several times and even took him to Lanulos. The descriptions of Lanulos by Derenberger are quite idyllic. He described it as a planet with similarities to Earth where people lived in peace without the need for governmental structures. The inhabitants wore simple clothes or sometimes none at all, and they engaged in activities like hunting and fishing. Derenberger's tales of Lanulos painted a picture of a utopian society quite unlike Earth, fostering a life devoid of strife and complexity. Like, it was just like the most basic utopia that a human could muster. Is that a Travis Scott reference, guys? Travis Scott? Derenberger's stories were met with both fascination and skepticism. He detailed his experiences in a book titled The Visitors from Lanulos. His claims contributed to the broader UFO mythology during a period when reports of close encounters were gaining public attention. Critics argue that his accounts lack corroborative evidence and may have been influenced by the cultural fascination with space exploration and alien life during the 60s. Nonetheless, his story persists as a pretty curious anecdote within the larger narrative of UFO encounters and extraterrestrial contact. Next up, we got Alien Pancakes. The story of Alien Pancakes is one of the more unusual and whimsical episodes in the annals of UFO folklore, involving a Wisconsin farmer named Joe Simonton. This incident occurred on the morning of April 18th, 1961 in Eagle River, Wisconsin, and it adds a rather domestic twist to the usual tales of mysterious sightings and abductions. Joe Simonton, then 60 years old, claimed that he heard a noise outside his home and saw a silver disc-shaped object, about 12 feet in diameter, land in his yard. He described seeing three beings about 5 feet tall, wearing black or navy blue outfits with turtlenecks, emerge from the craft. According to Simonton, these beings appeared humanoid and one of them held up a jug, which seemed to indicate a need for water. Simonton obliged, fetching the water from his house. While one of the beings filled the jug, Simonton noticed another being cooking on some type of flameless grill inside the spacecraft. He described the food as pancakes and noted that they were about 3 inches in diameter and perforated with small holes. Curiously, one of the aliens noticed Simonton's interest and offered him 4 of these pancakes. Simonton accepted the pancakes, which he later described as tasting like cardboard when he tried eating one. The UFO and its occupants reportedly left as suddenly as they had arrived, taking off vertically and disappearing quickly. Simonton reported the incident to the U.S. Air Force as part of Project Blue Book, the government's official investigation into UFO phenomena we already talked about. The Air Force took the case seriously enough to collect one of the pancakes for analysis. Laboratory tests concluded that the pancake was made out of ordinary flour, sugar, and Greece. However, the event remained unexplained as there was no evidence to either corroborate or debunk Simonton's account. So I don't know, man. See, all of these are so inconclusive, bro. Like, come on, just give me one where it's like there's like an answer, dude, you know? Or I guess that's what makes it interesting, you know, is that there's no answer. Yo, most of the new Blade album, he just dropped Cold Visions like a few days ago. Remember when I'm recording this? New Blade album, what'd y'all think of it? Y'all mess with it or what? Next up, we got the 1973 humanoid wave. The 1973 humanoid wave refers to a significant and widespread series of UFO and alien encounters that occurred across the United States and other parts of the world during that year. This period is often highlighted in UFO history due to the sheer volume and diversity of reports, which involve sightings of unidentified flying objects as well as direct encounters with humanoid beings. The reports from 1973 were particularly noted for their strangeness and the detailed descriptions of the entities involved. One of the most notable cases during this wave occurred in Pascagoula, Mississippi, involving two men, Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker. On the evening of October 11th, 1973, Hickson and Parker were fishing off a pier of the Pascagoula River when they heard a whirring/whizzing sound and saw two flashing blue lights. An oval-shaped object with a front opening appeared and three creatures emerged. The beings were described as humanoid but with robotic features such as pincer-like hands and skin that seemed like that of an elephant. Hickson and Parker reported being paralyzed and floated aboard the craft, where they underwent an examination before being released. The emotional impact of the encounter was profound, especially on Parker, who suffered greatly from anxiety and fear after it happened. Another significant event from the 1973 wave took place near Ashland, Nebraska, involving police officer Herbert Schirmer. On December 3rd, Schirmer encountered a UFO while on patrol. He claimed that he was taken aboard the craft where he met humanoid beings who communicated with him telepathically. They reportedly told him about their base on Venus and their exploratory mission on Earth. Schirmer later underwent hypnotic regression or hypnosis, where he revealed more details about the encounter, adding to the complex narrative of the experience. So yeah, 1973 was big for like these like humanoid things, and I mean it could just be that they were like a domino effect, you know, where like there were so many that they like it created more, but I don't know, a lot during that time. Next up, we got screen memories. Screen memories in the context of UFO encounters and alien abduction experiences are a deeply intriguing, I guess, aspect of it. These are essentially memories that abductees believe have been implanted by aliens to mask the true nature of their experiences, or they may be subconscious constructs that serve to protect the individual from traumatic memories. The concept of screen memories is not unique to UFOlogy. It originates from Freudian psychology and refers to a distorted or fabricated memory that hides the true content of a subconscious thought or a difficult experience. So they happen all the time, but they also can occur with UFO sightings, at least according to theory. In UFO abduction scenarios, individuals often report memories that seem mundane or bizarrely out of context, which later come under suspicion as potential screens for more unsettling encounters with these non-human entities. Common examples include memories of seeing owls, deer, or other animals during an abduction experience. These creatures are thought to be used by aliens as masks or symbols to cover up their own appearance and the potentially traumatic events of the abduction, making the memory seem less threatening and easier for the human mind to accept. And remember Whitley Strieber we were talking about? His story is big about this. So Strieber describes encounters with various non-human entities initially remembered as owl faces, which he later interpreted as a screen memory for alien faces. The use of the owl with its large forward-facing eyes can be seen as a symbolic stand-in for the stereotypical large-eyed appearance of alien beings known as greys. Screen memories are significant because they represent a profound intersection of psychology and the experiences reported by alleged abductees. These memories pose challenging questions about the nature of memory and perception. Psychologists and researchers suggest that such memories could be defenses against psychological trauma or ways to fill gaps in memory caused by intense stress or disorientation. Alright, next up we got the Oz factor. The Oz factor is a term coined by British ufologist Jenny Randalls to describe a peculiar sensation often reported by individuals during UFO sightings or encounters. This sensation involves a profound, surreal calmness and an alteration in perception, making the experience feel intensely private and disconnected from the normal flow of reality. It's as if the witness has stepped into a different world, much like Dorothy stepping into the magical land of Oz in L. Frank Baum's famous novel, which is where the term derives its name. Witnesses experiencing the Oz factor report a range of phenomena. Time seems to slow down or become irrelevant. Sounds from the surrounding environment may diminish or cease altogether, creating an eerie silence, and there's often a sense of isolation or detachment from the usual world, even if the sighting occurs in a typically busier, familiar area. This altered state is not just limited to the individual's internal experience, it can also affect their physical environment, making it seem unusually still or altered. The Oz factor is significant in ufology because it suggests that UFO encounters might involve more than just the visual sighting of unexplained objects. It points to a complex interaction between the witness and the phenomenon, potentially involving psychological effects or even manipulation of perception and reality by unknown means. This factor complicates the study of UFOs as it introduces subjective experiences that are difficult to measure or verify, but are nonetheless impactful for the experiencer. Researchers like Randolph have speculated that the Oz factor might be a form of sensory isolation induced by the proximity of the UFO or its occupants, perhaps as a byproduct of the technology or energy fields associated with the UFO. Alternatively, it could be a psychological reaction to an extraordinary event where the mind adjusts its perception of reality to cope with the inexplicable. I don't know, man, this stuff is like above my pay grade, bro. I'll be real. I'm gonna move on to USOs. So USOs are unidentified submersible objects. USOs are a particularly intriguing category of identified phenomena that pertains to objects observed entering, emerging from, or operating underwater. These objects behave in ways that seem to defy conventional explanations, much like their aerial counterparts, unidentified flying objects. The study of USOs is an integral part of ufology, as water bodies present a vast and largely unexplored domain where mysterious activities are frequently reported. Ever heard of Atlantis, buddy? USOs have been observed by credible witnesses, including Navy personnel, fishermen, and maritime workers, showcasing behaviors such as high-speed underwater travel and sudden emergence from the water to the air, which surpass known aquatic or aerial technology capabilities. For instance, the capabilities of USOs to move at high speeds both underwater and in the air without apparent transition difficulties suggest technologies beyond current human engineering. A historic and often cited case of USO activity is the 1967 Shag Harbor incident in Nova Scotia, Canada, where multiple witnesses reported seeing a large object descending into the waters off the coast. Initially thought to be a drowned aircraft, subsequent searches received no debris and no craft was reported missing in the area. Both Canadian and US military forces investigated, but the object was never identified, and its mysterious disappearance led to ongoing speculation about a USO. Another compelling case involves the observations made by the USS Trepang in 1971. The submarine encountered an unknown object while underway in the Arctic. The military personnel managed to photograph what appeared to be a large submarine-like object that moved through and above the water with ease. These photographs were later published, leading to widespread discussion and analysis within the UFOlogy community. So USOs, in a nutshell, are just UFOs, but for the water. Next up, we have aliens walk. The idea that aliens might be walking among us is a staple of science fiction and a recurring theme in more speculative discussions within the ufology community. This notion taps into a deep-seated curiosity about the universe and our place within it, pondering not just whether we are alone in the cosmos, but also how close and integrated extraterrestrial beings might be with human society. Proponents of this theory often cite various reasons or evidences to support the idea. One common thread is the historical and ongoing reports of close encounters with beings that appear human-like, but exhibit unusual behaviors or characteristics, such as telepathic communication, extraordinary intelligence, or physical features that are slightly off, like exceptionally large eyes or atypical body proportions. Such encounters fuel speculation that these beings could be aliens in disguise or hybrids living among us, observing or interacting with humanity for purposes unknown. Another aspect often discussed is the notion of ancient astronauts, theorized by proponents like Erich von Däniken and Zacharias Sitchin, who suggest that aliens visited Earth in distant past, influencing human civilization's development. This theory posits that we were talking about this a little bit earlier, right? But how it pertains to this is that it posits that these beings could have left behind a lineage or returned periodically, blending into human populations throughout history. But then, in more contemporary contexts, theories often emerge from secret governmental projects or conspiracies, suggesting that the government might be aware of or cooperating with ancient, alien beings. This includes theories about agreements between US government bodies and extraterrestrials, allowing aliens to operate on Earth in exchange for technology sharing, as suggested in various UFO conspiracy theories. I believe it 100%. I read it on the internet. I believe it 100% because I read it on the internet, and I believe everything I read on the internet 100%. So I believe this 100%. Next up, we have Richard S. Shaver. Richard Sharp Shaver was a figure whose stories and theories had a pretty significant impact on the early years of UFO mythology and the broader field of paranormal literature. Born in 1907, Shaver achieved notoriety in the 40s and 50s for his contributions to Amazing Stories, a science fiction magazine where he introduced the Shaver mystery. In the Shaver mystery, Shaver claimed that he discovered an ancient language he called Man-Tong, a root language from which all human languages evolved. According to Shaver, understanding Man-Tong allowed him to decode hidden messages that revealed the presence of sinister underground civilizations. These subterranean beings, which he called Deros and Teros, which stands for detrimental robots and integrative robots, were remnants of an advanced prehistoric race that had lived on Earth long before humans became dominant. Shaver alleged that the Deros were malevolent beings residing in vast caverns beneath the Earth's surface, meddling with human affairs through the use of powerful ancient technologies that included mind control and telepathic influence. The stories about the Deros and Teros, which Shaver said were based on his personal experiences and revelations during his time working in a factory where he claimed to hear the voices through welding equipment, were elaborated and expanded in his writings. These tales often featured abductions, manipulation, and a hidden world just beneath the surface of everyday life, themes that would later become staples in later UFO and conspiracy theories. The Shaver mystery generated a substantial following and had a great deal of controversy too. The scientific community obviously did not like it, but I don't know if it was even meant to be really real. It could have been just been a bit, you know? Next up, we got micro UFOs. Micro UFOs refer to very small, often drone-like objects that have been reported in various UFO sightings. These objects typically range in size from just a few inches to a couple of feet in diameter. The concept of micro UFOs expands on the usual imagery associated with UFO encounters, which is usually like a huge craft, by introducing the idea of possibly much smaller, perhaps even swarm-like technologies. One of the more notable aspects of micro UFOs is their potential for maneuverability and stealth. Due to their small size, these objects can navigate spaces that larger UFOs can't, and they might be used for tasks like surveillance or gathering samples without attracting much attention. The agility and speed often attributed to these micro UFOs suggest advanced propulsion technologies beyond what is known in human-developed drones or similar devices. Micro UFOs have been reported in various contexts. For example, witnesses sometimes describe seeing small orb-like objects around larger UFOs, which some interpret as a form of deployed equipment or smaller companion vehicles. Others report encounters with small, independent objects that exhibit intelligent control, such as reacting to human presence or swiftly avoiding obstacles, implying a sense of autonomy. And then a specific example of these micro UFO sightings occurred during the so-called Welsh Triangle phenomenon in the late 1970s. This series of events, centered around the village of Broadhaven in Wales, involved numerous sightings of UFOs and strange occurrences, including reports of small disc-like objects. One of the most compelling incidents during this wave was reported by a group of school children from Broadhaven Primary School in February 1977. The children claimed to have seen a silver cigar-shaped craft, but what makes this case particularly interesting is their description of seeing smaller, dome-shaped objects moving around the main craft. These small objects, described about the size of a car, exhibited rapid movements and the ability to hover, displaying characteristics commonly associated with micro UFOs. And then again, like I was saying earlier about children and stuff, this one too, the consistency in the kids' stories, coupled with the sketches they drew independently of each other, showed remarkable, sincerity and maybe realness. Who knows? Who knows? Next up, we got West Virginia. West Virginia is quite notable in UFO lore, particularly for a few infamous sightings that really captured the imagination, One of them is just the Mothman sightings, which I'm not going to talk about again, but that happened in West Virginia. And the other one I'm going to talk about is the Flatwoods Monster Incident. So this happened back in 1952, and the story begins on a September evening in the small town of Flatwoods when a group of local kids and a mom named Kathleen May spotted a bright object streak across the sky and seemingly land on a nearby farm. Curiosity got the best of them, and they decided to check it out. When they got to the site, they encountered a bizarre sight: a large, pulsating, quote, ball of fire and a 10-foot tall figure with a glowing face, red eyes, and a dark, pointed hood that looked like the spade from a playing card. The creature is often described as appearing mechanical or robotic, and when it moved toward them, the group fled in terror. Witnesses also reported a pungent mist that made their eyes and noses burn. This encounter quickly became a sensation fueled by Cold War anxieties, and it's still talked about a lot today though. And then those are just two examples. There's a lot of stuff in West Virginia. There's also the Braxton County one. There were several UFO sightings in the Braxton County. There's the Wheeling one, Parkersburg, Charleston in 2010. That's like a recent one. Huntington. Anyways, you get it. There's a lot in West Virginia. Moving on to Albert K. Bender. Albert K. Bender is a pivotal figure in the history of UFOlogy, particularly known for his mysterious role in the early days of the study of UFOs. Bender was the founder of the International Flying Saucer Bureau, IFSB, an organization he established in 1952 in Bridgeport, Connecticut, to collect and research information on UFOs and disseminate findings among fellow enthusiasts. His interest and involvement would lead to one of the most bizarre and eerie episodes in UFO lore. We actually already talked about this a little bit when we were talking about the Men in Black, but I'm just going to talk about it again. You can just double tap a few times, you know, it shouldn't be too long. In March 1953, Bender made a startling announcement in the IFSB's newsletter Space Review that he had discovered the secret behind the UFOs. However, he indicated that he had been ordered not to disclose these findings by a higher authority, and as a result, he decided to disband the entire organization. He said that he was visited by 3 men in dark suits, blah blah blah. We talked about this before. Anyways, yeah, cool. Next up we have portals. The concept of portals refers to the hypothetical gateways that allow for instantaneous travel between different points in space and sometimes time. These are often discussed as either technological constructs used by extraterrestrial beings or natural phenomena that have been harnessed or generated by advanced technologies beyond our current understanding. The idea of portals is rooted in both science fiction and speculative theories about the nature of the universe. In theoretical physics, concepts like wormholes, based on Einstein's theory of relativity, provide a scientific groundwork for how these portals might be physically possible. Wormholes are hypothesized to be tunnels through space-time that could connect distant parts of the universe, potentially allowing for travel across vast distances much quicker than would be possible at the speed of light. In UFOlogy, many anecdotal reports and theories suggest that aliens might be using these portals to visit Earth from distant star systems, explaining how they could overcome the vast distances involved in interstellar travel. Some eyewitness accounts of UFO encounters describe objects or entities appearing and disappearing suddenly, which could be a portal. For example, there are stories from regions reputed to be UFO hotspots like the Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, where witnesses claim to not just see UFOs, but also otherworldly creatures and bizarre phenomena that appear to materialize and vanish inexplicably. These reports fuel theories that such locations might contain or be adjacent to natural portal sites, or that extraterrestrial visitors have created artificial gateways at these spots. Furthermore, in various mythologies and ancient texts, there are descriptions of, quote, gates or doorways to other worlds, which some modern theorists suggest could be early interpretations of portal technology or phenomena. Who knows, man? I've been saying that a lot, dude. I gotta quit saying that. Who knows, bro? I'm probably using more Portal gameplay for this video. I use that for like half my videos. It's a good game, dude. Anyways, next up we got Women in Black. What, you mean my type? Goth girls be like, you know what I mean? You guys know what I mean? Anyways, the Women in Black are a lesser known counterpart to the more famous Men in Black associated with UFO phenomena and other unexplained occurrences. While the Men in Black have become a staple of UFO lore, we already talked about that, the Women in Black are similarly mysterious, but they have revealed significantly less attention in popular culture. Like their male counterparts, the Women in Black are described as dressing entirely in black attire, and they reportedly appear to intimidate or silence individuals who have experienced or are involved in paranormal or UFO-related activities. Reports suggest that these women often exhibit unusual characteristics. They may have an unsettling presence, their behavior or speech might seem robotic or unnatural, and they're often described as having an otherworldly or strangely compelling appearance. So they look pretty much the exact same. However, witnesses often know that the Women in Black have like a distinct aura around them. They're also described as being exceedingly pale, sometimes with an almost supernatural grace or poise, and their behavior tends to be more enigmatic compared to the Men in Black. The Women in Black are more like coercive and more subtle. Also, another difference is that the Women in Black tend to do like longer visits, almost like they pose as like journalists or researchers, while Men in Black usually just like show up and say, you know, forget. But they're pretty much very, very, very similar. All right, and that was layer 2. Getting into layer 3, I asked my friend Snook from the Snook channel to help me out with this layer. But then I'll be back for layers 4 and 5, so don't worry. No, just kidding, but here we go. Thank you, Snook.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Snook, and I'm here on Poi's video. Thanks for him for inviting me out. I make icebergs too, so if you want to check me out, cool. If you don't, cool. Anyways, now on to tier 3. Holy figures seen aboard UFOs. Reports of encounters with holy figures aboard unidentified flying objects, or UFOs, are quite rare, but have occurred in various accounts of alleged alien contact or abduction experiences. In some cases, individuals have claimed to have encountered figures resembling religious or spiritual figures during their UFO experiences, but who knows if these are valid claims or not. These encounters are often interpreted through the lens of the individual's cultural and religious background. One famous example is the case of the Virgin Mary appearing to a group of children in Fatima, Portugal, in 1917. While this event is not typically associated with UFOs, some interpretations have linked it to potential extraterrestrial phenomena. In modern UFO abduction accounts, there have been reports of encounters with beings described as resembling angels or figures from religious texts. These encounters are often interpreted by the experiencers as spiritual or divine in nature, although interpretations can vary widely. And all of these entries are the closest thing I could find to holy figures aboard UFOs. So if any of you guys know any more events that happened that are more spiritual and more like figures that are seen in certain stories, let me know down below. Deaths caused by UFOs. I really couldn't find much on people directly dying or any sort of stories from dying from UFOs, but during a recent appearance on the Full Send podcast, Tucker Carlson from Fox News recounted a conversation he had with a Stanford professor. Allegedly, 11 years ago, this professor was tasked by the Defense Department to investigate numerous instances of troops suffering brain injuries caused by UFOs. According to Carlson, his source, who specialized in traumatic brain injury, examined the brains of over 100 deceased troops who have encountered such incidents. The professor also mentioned the existence of numerous ongoing court cases supporting these assertions. Carlson expressed surprise that such significant revelations were not making headlines. On the other hand, the US military has distanced itself from this UFO discussion, with Defense Department spokesperson Susan Go refuting the claims as false. Meanwhile, UFOs have increasingly become a focus among military officials. Recently, the head of the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office authored a report suggesting the possibility of alien vessels deploying search probes across our solar system. So, whether you think that's real or not, it's definitely kind of alarming that the government has kind of admitted they are real. The report, which is titled Physical Constraints of Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, was co-authored by Abraham Loeb, chair of Harvard University's Astronomy Department, and highlights the potential implications of unidentified aerial phenomena, especially following heightened reporting due to the recent events like a Chinese spy balloon in US airspace. The PK Man. The PK Man refers to Ted Owens, who claimed to have extraordinary psychokinetic abilities. He asserted that he could control and influence various events, including weather patterns and UFO sightings, through his mind alone. Owens gained notoriety in the 1970s for his claims and alleged demonstrations of these so-called abilities. Regarding UFOs, Owens maintained that he could summon them at will and even communicate with extraterrestrial beings. He believed that he had a special connection with these entities and that they chose him to serve as a sort of intermediary between them and humanity. However, Owens' claims have been met with skepticism and criticism from basically everyone. While some individuals believe in his abilities, others dismiss them as delusions or just fabrications. The scientific community generally regards his claims as pseudoscience, lacking any sort of evidence to support them. The super spectrum. Super spectrum could refer to a theoretical extension of the electromagnetic spectrum beyond what humans can perceive with their senses or current technology. So in this context, which is the super spectrum and UFOs, might suggest unidentified aerial phenomena that operate or emit signals beyond the visible spectrum. So we might just not be able to, be able to sense them yet because they use some sort of different thing that we can't detect yet, such as infrared, ultraviolet, or even radio waves. These UFOs could potentially be detectable by specialized equipment that we just haven't designed yet. Aliens are not physical. This one is very similar to the last one, and this one is basically just saying aliens are not physical, but they're kind of like in a different dimensional plane or something like that. I know it sounds crazy, but that's all the things I've found on aliens are not physical, but they kind of exist in the universe. They're kind of like spirits or something. I don't know. This one's kind of confusing as well, but it's very similar to the last one we covered. They're just kind of like undetectable because they're in like a different dimension or something. Fairies. Fairies are mythical creatures often associated with folklore and mythology, especially in European traditions. They are typically depicted as supernatural beings with human-like appearances, possessing magical abilities, and sometimes having a connection to nature. Throughout history, various cultures have had their own interpretations of fairies, with descriptions ranging from mischievous and playful to benevolent or malevolent. They are often said to inhabit forests, meadows, and other natural landscapes, and are sometimes believed to interact with humans, either helping or hindering them depending on the stories. So maybe these fairies are aliens of some sort? Who knows? Sentient UFOs, and I couldn't find much at all on sentient UFOs. Maybe this is saying that the UFOs themselves, like the flying objects, are sentient themselves, like they think, and they don't have aliens inside of them, or aliens are sentient, or just the UFOs which fly around are actual like thinking things. I don't know. Let me know what you think down below. Aliens influence New Age movement. The influence of the concept of aliens on the New Age movement is an intriguing aspect of modern spirituality. Within the New Age movement, there's a broad acceptance of unconventional ideas, including those related to extraterrestrial life and the possibility of contact or communication with beings from other planets or dimensions. Some adherents of the New Age movement believe that aliens, often referred to as extraterrestrial beings or star beings, play a significant role in humanity's spiritual evolution. They may view these beings as advanced spiritual entities who offer guidance, wisdom, or even assistance in the form of technological advancements. The belief in aliens within the New Age movement can intersect with various other spiritual concepts, such as channeling, meditation, astral projection, and holistic healing practices. Some New Age practitioners claim to have direct contact or communication with extraterrestrial beings through methods like channeling, where they purportedly receive messages or teachings from these entities. All Colors Sam. Sam, the Sandown Clown, is a strange and weird creature that some people claim to have seen in England. There's only one story about meeting him, and it happened in 1973 to two kids in Sandown. Sam was really tall, about 7 feet tall, and had a weird look. He wore a green suit with a red collar and a pointy yellow hat. His face had triangle eyes, a square nose, and a yellow lips that didn't move, so very similar to clown looking. He also had red cheeks and a bit of red hair. According to the story, Sam made a strange noise, dropped a book in a stream, and then talked to the kids in a funny way. He said his name was Sam and that he wasn't exactly a human or a ghost. He seemed friendly but also scared of people. He even invited the kids into his hut. Inside the hut, there wasn't much except for a heater and some furniture. Sam did some weird tricks with a berry, but mostly he gave vague answers to the kids' questions. When the kids told others about Sam, nobody believed them. And when they went back to find Sam's hut, it was gone. So, Sam the Sandown Clown remains a mystery. Was he a weird creature, a person in a costume, or even just a figment of the kids' imaginations? We may never know for sure, or it was a UFO or alien or something like that. Ozo 1. The Ozo 1 incident refers to an alleged encounter with an unidentified flying object that occurred in Ossois, a commune in the Savoie department in the, I'm going to mispronounce this, but Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region in southeastern France. The incident supposedly took place on February 10, 1961. According to the accounts, witnesses claimed to have seen a mysterious object flying over the area, which exhibited unconventional flight patterns and characteristics not consistent with known aircraft. Some witnesses reported seeing the object emit bright lights or strange colors. The incident gained attention in ufology circles and has been a subject in various investigations and speculations over the years. Fake futuristic technology. The phenomenon of UFOs has, been popular. But among the myriad sightings reported, there are some that stand out for their apparent display of futuristic or advanced technology, although these could be fake, who knows. One category of such sightings involves experimental aircraft developed by governments or private entities, so maybe it's not as futuristic as we think because it actually exists in just military organizations. Military organizations in particular frequently engage in research and development of cutting-edge aircraft with capabilities far beyond conventional planes. These experimental crafts may feature unconventional designs, propulsion systems, or stealth technology, leading them to be mistaken for extraterrestrial spacecraft by unsuspecting observers. Another factor might be drone technology. Drones come in various shapes and sizes, equipped with advanced features and capable of executing complex maneuvers. When witnessed in the sky, especially at night with their lights visible, drones can easily be mistaken for a UFO, especially by individuals unfamiliar with their appearance or capabilities. So maybe UFOs are just drones or military aircrafts that we haven't seen yet or been exposed to the public. But let me know what you think. Animal mutilation. Since December 1994, Puerto Rico has become synonymous with a chilling saga of animal mutilations that have left its communities in a state of shock. Livestock, once the lifeblood of many rural areas, has fallen victim to a series of gruesome attacks attributed to the elusive entity known as the chupacabra, which is arguably an alien. The scene of each attack is marked by a display of carnage, with livestock found mutilated and drained of blood, their bodies bearing the signature wounds that defy conventional explanation. Veterinary examinations of the deceased animals paint a grim picture of deliberate and methodical mutilation. The wounds, characterized by precise incisions and puncture marks, suggest a level of intelligence and premeditation beyond the realm of just natural predators. These examinations reveal a pattern of injuries that defy any sort of conventional understanding, leading investigators to kind of question with the chilling possibility of a predator unlike any known to science. The sheer scale and frequency of these mutilations have sent shockwaves through Puerto Rican communities, instilling a sense of fear and paranoia among farmers and residents alike. No longer can they just tend to their livestock with a peace of mind once afforded to them, as each day brings within a threat of another attack by this alien or what it be. The toll of livelihoods and mental well-being is immeasurable, with the specter of the chupacabra casting a long and big shadow over the island. Yet, amidst the fear and uncertainty, a resilient spirit of defiance emerges as communities rally together in the face of this chupacabra. Farmers employ increasingly elaborate measures to protect their livestock, from fortified enclosures to round-the-clock surveillance. Local authorities, too, are spurred into action, launching investigations and patrols in a bid to apprehend the elusive perpetrator behind these weird and unique attacks. Hybrid babies. The human-alien hybrid theory suggests that some extraterrestrial beings may be interbreeding with humans, resulting in offspring that are part human and part alien. This idea often stems from reports of alleged alien abductions where people claim to have been taken aboard UFOs and subjected to medical procedures, including reproductive experiments. Proponents of this theory argue that these hybrids may walk among us, blending into human society while retaining some alien characteristics. They speculate that these hybrids could be involved in secretive agendas, such as influencing human evolution, or maybe preparing for an eventual alien takeover. Aliens love our bread, and I don't know. I literally couldn't find anything about aliens loving our bread, but maybe like aliens steal our bread, or maybe they just like it. I don't know. If you guys know anything about aliens loving our bread, let me know down below, because I'm actually really interested to see what this is about. Bedroom invaders. This is just kind of like another sort of thing how people get abducted, and sometimes some stories say that people are just chilling in their bedroom and then an alien will walk in and abduct them. So yeah, I couldn't find any sort of specific story talking about that, but basically that's just what it is. Aliens coming into your bedroom and abducting you. Crucifix UFO. Reports of crucifix-shaped UFOs appearing over conflict zones like Ukraine, especially in cities like Sevastopol, indeed carry mysterious and potentially profound significance. The convergence of religious belief, war, and technological uncertainty creates an atmosphere that's weird and speculation and interpretation. The initial reaction of citizens attributing these sightings to extraterrestrial or spiritual origins is understandable, because look at this picture. Up in the sky, it's literally just a crucifix that's kind of flying. It's really weird. The notion of angels or other flying humanoid beings is kind of resonates deeply with religious and cultural narratives, offering a sense of reassurance, because this is in Ukraine with the war going on. So I guess it is reassurance to see maybe a crucifix in the sky. I'd be more freaked out, to be honest. However, alternative explanations rooted in more earthly phenomena also warrant consideration. The possibility of military operations, drones, or even unconventional aerial devices like reflective kites could account for the observed movements and light patterns. In this age of advanced technology and geopolitical tensions, the line between what is real and what is manufactured can often blur. The suggestion of Project Bluebeam-like scenario involving the manipulation of religious symbols through CGI or other means adds another possible layer. Magonia. Magonia is a term with historical and mythological connotations. In medieval European folklore, Magonia was believed to be a mythical land located in the clouds or the sky, often associated with tales of flying ships or aerial phenomena. The concept of Magonia gained popularity in the 19th and early 20th centuries, with the resurgence of interest in folklore and mythology. French historian and folklorist Jacques Vallée wrote about Magonia in his book Passport to Magonia, where he explores the connection between historical reports of strange aerial phenomena such as UFO sightings and ancient myths and legends. Healing UFOs. Healing UFOs is a concept that has kind of emerged within certain circles of ufology and alternative healing communities. It refers to the idea that UFOs or extraterrestrial beings may possess advanced healing technologies or abilities that could potentially be used to heal physical ailments or promote wellness in humans. Some proponents of this idea suggest that encounters with UFOs or extraterrestrial beings have resulted in reported instances of spontaneous healing or improvement in health conditions among individuals who claim to have contact experiences. These healing encounters are sometimes described as involving the use of advanced medical technologies or energy-based healing modalities. Black-eyed children. The phenomenon of the black-eyed children refers to a modern urban legend or paranormal tale involving encounters with mysterious and weird children who possess solid black eyes, devoid of any sort of pupil or irises. These children are said to appear unexpectedly and often seek entry into homes or vehicles, typically under the guise of needing help or assistance. The legend of black-eyed children gained prominence in the late 20th and early 21st centuries, primarily through anecdotal accounts shared on the internet and in paranormal forums. Reports of encounters with these unsettling figures often describe feelings of intense fear or unease in the presence of the children, as well as a sense of being compelled to comply with their request. While the origins of the black-eyed children legend are overall uncertain, some speculate that it may have roots in early folklore or mythological traditions involving supernatural entities or extraterrestrial beings, and maybe these children are like weird aliens or something. Others attribute the phenomenon to modern urban legends and the power of suggestion in shaping people's perceptions of unusual encounters. Skeptics regard stories of black-eyed children as urban legends or just examples of mass hysteria. And alright guys, that wraps it up for me. And if you want to hear more from me, I guess, check out my channel, but do that after watching all of Poi's video. Watch the rest of this video. Poi does a great job. I'm sure he'll do a great job. And I'm handing it back to him. He'll finish out this iceberg. All right, see you guys.
All right, thank you, Snook. Guys, go check his channel out after this video is over, obviously. But yeah, thank you, Snook. Let's get straight into Layer 4, starting with Filberto Cardenas' abduction. On January 3rd, 1979, Filberto Cardenas, along with 3 others, was driving near Halle, Florida, when their car engine suddenly stopped. Cardenas and another passenger got out to check under their hood. According to reports, this is when the bizarre part of the story unfolded. Cardenas was allegedly taken by unseen forces. The other passengers heard a whooshing sound and saw Cardenas being levitated into the air and disappearing into what they described as a bright light above them. Moments later, Cardenas claimed to find himself aboard an alien spacecraft, encountering beings that did not resemble humans. These beings were described as tall and humanoid with large, slanted eyes. They communicated with Cardenas not through spoken language, but through a form of telepathy, which seems to be a common thread throughout a lot of these encounters. During his alleged onboard experience, he observed various control panels and otherworldly technology, which he could not comprehend. Cardenas' experience didn't last long. He was soon found miles away from where he was originally taken, feeling disoriented but unharmed. The Cardenas abduction case was thoroughly investigated by UFO researchers and even caught the attention of some government authorities. What makes this case particularly interesting for ufologists is the level of detail provided by Cardenas and the corroborative testimonies of the other passengers. Additionally, the physical evidence, such as the car's sudden malfunction and Cardenas' subsequent reappearance in a completely different location, provides a pretty compelling narrative that, makes it interesting at least. So yeah, another case, it's interesting how it has the same thread of being telepathically, talked to. Some similar with, the Betty and Barney Hill and a lot of the other stories. I don't know. I mean, if there are aliens, they probably talk telepathically because of all these encounters. Alright, next up we have the idea that greys are humanoids. So this theory proposes that these beings are not organic creatures, but are instead artificial constructs designed by a more advanced civilization. So when people describe encounters with greys, they often mention how these beings seem kind of uniform. Imagine it like coming across a group where everyone not only looks identical, but also moves in a very identical, mechanical, almost rehearsed way. This has led some to speculate that maybe greys aren't a natural species at all, but they're actually built, that they're essentially biological robots created by a much more advanced civilization. Think about it. If you were an advanced advanced alien species wanting to explore the galaxy or interact with other life forms, would you risk sending your own kind into potentially dangerous situations? Maybe not. Instead, creating a fleet of androids could be a safer bet. These androids could handle tasks like collecting samples, conducting experiments, or even making first contact with other species like us. The way abductees describe their interaction with Greys also feeds into this theory. The encounters are often described as highly clinical, with procedures and behaviors that feel almost scripted, lacking in any personal or emotional connection. This could suggest that Greys are programmed for specific tasks, rather than engaging with humans on a more personal or emotional level. So maybe, I don't know. This one actually seems kind of believable. I don't know. Maybe it's just because I've been going crazy researching all this stuff for like hours and days. But I don't know. Maybe I'm going crazy now, but this one seems, I don't know. I kind of believe it. I kind of believe it, actually. I believe it 100% because I read it on the internet. Next up, we have Stefan Denerade. Stefan Denerade is a fascinating figure in the realm of UFO literature, primarily known for his book Operation Survival Earth, which recounts his alleged encounter with an extraterrestrial civilization called the Largons. His story is one of the more unique and philosophically rich narratives in the field of ufology. So, Denerade's story begins in 1969 when he claims his boat collided with a UFO submerged under the surface of the waters off the Dutch coast. Rather than an adversarial encounter, what follows is a remarkable dialogue. The beings from the spacecraft, the Largons, invite him aboard their vessel. They're described as human-like, yet distinctly different, with larger, more pronounced features and a deeply communal sense of society. Over the course of his experience, which he describes in detail, Denard learns about the Largons' world, which is portrayed as a utopia of sorts. The Largons share with him their experiences of societal organization, which is based on communal living and an economic system that does not use money, but is centered around shared resources and quality. They emphasize the importance of ecological balance and sustainable living, principles they consider crucial, not just for their survival, but for the well-being of the cosmos. The Largons also delve into spiritual matters, explaining their belief in a universal force of love that connects all life forms. They stress the interconnectedness of all beings and the importance of spiritual connection. Their philosophy suggests that every species has a role in the broader cosmic tapestry. So either this is real or Denard was just like a weird political extremist or something, man. I don't know. Alright, next up we have Bigfoot activity near UFOs. There's a curious pattern that some researchers have noticed. In areas where there are spikes in UFO sightings, there sometimes also seems to be an uptick in reports of Bigfoot-like creatures. This correlation has sparked all kinds of speculation about the nature of Bigfoot and its possible connection to extraterrestrial visitors. Could Bigfoot himself be an alien species, or is there another explanation? One of the more popular theories in the UFO community suggests that Bigfoot could be an extraterrestrial being left behind by UFOs, either accidentally or as part of a cosmic mission. Think about it like a biological explorer, not unlike the rovers that we send to Mars. This theory posits that Bigfoot creatures are adapted to Earth's environment in ways that their alien creators are not, making them perfect for gathering data or performing tasks too risky for the extraterrestrials themselves. There are plenty of intriguing stories that feed into this theory. For instance, in 1973 in Pennsylvania, there was a reported case where a UFO was seen in conjunction with a Bigfoot sighting. Witnesses claimed that a large, hairy creature appeared in the same area where a strange craft had landed in the woods. The creature and the UFO were seen simultaneously, suggesting a possible link between the two phenomena. Such accounts make you wonder whether there's more to Bigfoot than just being, a creepy little monkey. Then there's the perspective that perhaps these simultaneous sightings are more about the locations themselves. Maybe these areas have specific environmental or electromagnetic characteristics that make them attractive to both UFOs and Bigfoot creatures. Or perhaps witnessing one unexplainable phenomenon makes people more likely to notice and report other ones. Or maybe these areas just have a high population of people who will make up stuff and believe in stuff that isn't really real. You ever listening to Guts by Olivia Rodrigo and then you get to Lacey and you're like, why the hell am I listening to this song? Is that just me? We got any O-Rod fans, Olivia Rodrigo fans in my chat? Any O-Rod and Blade fans? If you're an Olivia Rodrigo fan and a Blade fan, you're based as hell, okay? I'm just gonna say it. If you can, okay, in my Discord, guys, if you can submit proof that you listen to Olivia and Blade enough, like on like your Spotify stats or something, then I'll give you like owner role, bro. I will, bro. Only cool people can listen to Blade and Olivia Rodrigo. Anyways, now we got Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl playing in the playlist. This is fire. Next up, we got time slips. Time slips are a truly fascinating and mind-bending concept that sound like something straight out of a science fiction novel. Essentially, a time slip is an event where it appears as if time is moved backwards or forwards, suddenly and inexplicably. People who report experiencing time slips often describe briefly finding themselves in another time period, observing scenes from the past or even the future before suddenly returning to the present. This phenomenon doesn't have a scientific explanation and is generally regarded with skepticism by the mainstream scientific community. However, it captures the imagination of many who are interested in the paranormal and UFOs. So one famous example often cited is the Bold Street time slip reported in Liverpool, England. People claim to have wandered into a shop or down a street only to find themselves seemingly transported to the 1940s or 50s, seeing everything from old-fashioned cars to people dressed in period clothing. After a short while, they return to the present, often feeling disoriented and confused. These experiences are hard to verify, of course, but they're consistently reported with vivid details that make you pause and wonder. Now, in the context of UFOs and aliens, time slips raise some pretty intriguing possibilities. Could they be evidence of advanced extraterrestrial technologies that can manipulate time? Or might they suggest that what we perceive as UFOs are not just traversing space, but also time, indicating a more complex universe than our current understanding of physics alone? Some ufologists theorize that aliens could be visitors from our own future, using technology to travel back in time. This could potentially explain both UFOs and time slips as part of the same phenomenon. If true, it would mean that these encounters are not just extraterrestrial, but also extratemporal, broadening the scope of our inquiries into who these visitors might be and what their intentions could entail. Either way, these are pretty cool. These are interesting. Next up, we got Round Trip to Hell in a Flying Saucer. Alright, so Round Trip to Hell in a Flying Saucer is actually the title of a book by Cecil Michael, published in 1955. This book is a unique entry in the annals of UFO literature. So in the book, Michael recounts his experiences of being abducted by extraterrestrials from a dimension that he describes as hellish in nature. It's not hell in the traditional religious sense, but rather a dimension that is profoundly disturbing and challenging to human sensibilities. Michael describes his encounters with various entities, including what he perceives as demonic beings, and his journey aboard their spacecraft. The narrative blends elements of science fiction, horror, and spiritual autobiography. The story is rich with descriptions of advanced alien technologies and philosophies, but it's equally focused on the psychological and spiritual impact of the experience. Michael uses his ordeal to delve into themes of redemption, transformation, and the battle between good and evil. I don't think this is actually taken as like serious UFO lore in like the UFO communities or anything, I don't think, but yeah. Alright, next up we have underwater bases. So the concept of underwater bases in relation to UFOs is kind of weird. So these supposed bases are often referred to as USOs, or unidentified submerged objects, or at least USO bases, where it's speculated that extraterrestrial or unidentified beings could be operating from beneath the Earth's bodies of water. This idea extends the traditional notion of UFO activity being confined to the skies and suggests a more complex network of activities, including aquatic environments. The ocean covers about 70% of our surface and reaches profound depths, much of which remains unexplored and poorly understood by humans. This vast and mysterious frontier provides an ideal context for theories about hidden bases where advanced beings could monitor human activity or manage their operations on Earth with minimal detection. Such theories are bolstered by numerous reports and accounts of USOs sighted entering or exiting the water in various parts of the world, suggesting the presence of sophisticated technology capable of navigating both aerospace and marine environments. One of the most famous sites for alleged extraterrestrial underwater activity is the region around Puerto Rico, particularly the deep ocean trench known as Puerto Rico Trench. Ufologists and paranormal researchers have cited this area as a hotspot for UFO activity, with numerous sightings or mysterious objects diving into or emerging from the ocean's depths. There are also reports from other parts of the world, like the Dragon's Triangle off the coast of Japan, and the Bermuda Triangle in the Atlantic, where similar phenomena have been observed. In addition to anecdotal evidence, there are a few theories that attempt to provide a rationale for why extraterrestrial beings might choose underwater locations. One idea is that water provides a natural shield against detection, both visually and in terms of radar. Water is also an abundant resource, and an advanced civilization might utilize it for energy production or other unknown technologies. I mean, it makes sense. If I was an alien, I'd probably want to build a base underwater because, you know, like we can't go too deep or whatever because of the pressure, right? But I mean, if they're aliens and they can get here, they probably have the technology to like withstand that kind of pressure. So it's some place that we can't get to. I mean, I don't know, I'm just saying. Next up, we have the Cisco Grove incident. The Cisco Grove incident is a lesser known but still highly intriguing UFO case involving an alleged encounter with extraterrestrial beings in 1964. This incident stands out due to its pretty dramatic narrative and its survival story, that of its main witness, Donald Shrum. Donald Shrum, a then 28-year-old bow hunter, went hunting with friends in the woods near Cisco Grove, California. After becoming separated from his group as night fell, Shrum decided to spend the night up in a tree for safety. What followed was a horroring all-night encounter that would become one of the most unique stories in the annals of UFO encounters, so let's just get into it. According to Shrum's account, he first noticed a strange light moving toward the trees. This light eventually coalesced into a hovering, white light-emitting craft. As he watched from his perch in the tree, figures emerged from this craft. These beings tried to dislodge him from his position, and Shrum described these figures in two forms: humanoid beings wearing tight white clothing, and more robotic creatures, which he likened to robots due to their jerky movements and metallic features. Throughout the night, Shrum claimed he was subjected to various forms of harassment by these beings, including being engulfed in a noxious mist that he believed was intended to incapacitate him. To defend himself, Shrum used all the resources he had at disposal, including firing arrows and setting fire to his clothing to make a makeshift torch. As dawn approached, the beings retreated, and Shrum was able to finally climb down and eventually reunite with his friends who had been searching for him. He was profoundly shaken by this experience, obviously, and physical evidence such as his damaged bow and burned clothing corroborated his story to some extent. The Cisco Grove incident was thoroughly investigated by UFO researchers, and it became a classic case within the field due to the detailed nature of his account and the physical evidence. It's one of the most famous just because it's could be real. There's actual evidence. Next up, we have the Native American connection. So the connection between Native American cultures and UFOs encompasses a pretty rich tapestry of spiritual beliefs and a lot of other stuff. Many Native American tribes have traditions and stories that describe beings from the stars or skies, celestial events, and otherworldly encounters that resonate with the modern UFO narratives. These connections are not merely coincidental, but are deeply embedded in the spiritual and cosmological views of many tribes. One prominent aspect of this connection is the widespread belief among various tribes in star people or sky beings. These entities are often described as visitors from the stars who have interacted with native peoples, sometimes bringing knowledge or messages or intervening in human affairs in pretty significant ways. For example, the Hopi of the southwestern United States have traditions involving the Kachinas, who are understood as spirit beings from the sky that influence the world, teaching agriculture, weaving, and bringing rain. So these Kachinas are basically Blade, because he's the rain king. Anyways, the Kachinas are revered as intermediary. That was a joke, by the way, guys. I hope that wasn't offensive. That was a joke. I'm kidding. Anyways, the Kachinas are revered as intermediaries between the human world and the spiritual realms. Similarly, the Lakota and other Plains tribes have rich traditions that include stories of interactions with beings from the stars, often recounted in their spiritual rituals such as the Sundance. These stories frequently involve celestial visitors who impact their spiritual practices in daily life, suggesting a cultural understanding of a relationship with cosmic entities. The Zuni, another Pueblo group, have a detailed cosmology that includes beings from the sky, and their ceremonial practices are deeply tied to these beliefs. The Zuni's interaction with these sky beings is often interpreted through rituals and religious practices, which are seen as maintaining balance between the earth and the cosmos. In contemporary times, many Native American UFO encounters are often seen through this traditional lens of star people, with modern sightings and experiences interpreted as a part of long-standing relationship with these beings. For instance, encounters with unidentified flying objects are sometimes discussed in the context of prophetic visions or as part of the tribal history of contact with non-human entities. Moreover, some researchers argue that Native American sacred sites are located on energy vortexes that attract both spiritual phenomena and UFO sightings. Okay, obvious joke, obvious joke, obvious joke. Casinos. Insert joke here. Places like Sedona in Arizona and the San Luis Valley in Colorado are often noted for their high frequency of UFO sightings, and they hold spiritual significance for Native American communities. I mean, there could be something there. Yeah, there sure are energy vortexes on Native American tribal grounds. Me when I lose $1 million at the casino. Guys, I hope you know I'm joking, but all that, I'm not, it's all a joke. It's all a big old joke, guys. Come on. I'm not anything bad. Okay, that makes it sound worse, probably, now that I said that. Anyways, you guys trust me. Next up, we have phantom social workers. This one's really interesting. So this happened in the UK during the 80s and 90s. It involves reports of individuals, often women, posing as social workers and attempting to gain access to people's homes and children under false pretenses. These incidents stirred significant anxiety and confusion, leading to police investigations and media coverage that fueled public concern. Phantom social workers, sometimes referred to as bogus social workers, were reported to arrive unannounced at the homes of families with young children. They typically presented themselves as officials from social services, claiming the need to check on the welfare of the children due to reports of abuse or neglect. These imposters were often described as well-dressed and professional-looking, sometimes carrying briefcases and appearing quite convincing. They would ask to see the children or try to enter the home, but strangely, they lacked proper identification or detailed explanations for their visits. What made these encounters particularly eerie was the absence of any legitimate reason for these visits. In many cases, when families contacted local social services departments, they found that no such checks had been planned or authorized. This led to suspicions and fears about the intentions behind these visits, ranging from child abduction schemes to more supernatural explanations. The peak of these reports led to a police investigation. For instance, in 1990, there were widespread reports across the UK that prompted official inquiries. However, despite the attention and concern, few, if any, of the phantom social workers were ever apprehended, and there was little evidence to explain who they were or what their motives might have been. Now, in a broader context, some have linked the phenomenon to widespread anxieties about child safety, government authority, and intrusion into private lives, reflecting deeper societal fears. From a folklore perspective, though, it could be aliens. It's aliens. It's gotta be aliens. Aliens want your children, bro. Aliens want your kid, bro. Be careful. Next up, we got the Dade City Flowers. The Dade City Flowers incident is a lesser known, but rather intriguing chapter in UFO lore, primarily because it combines elements of an alleged UFO sighting with an unusual physical trace left behind of flowers. This incident took place in Dade City, Florida, and involved a witness named Gary Travis, who reported seeing a UFO that resulted in the mysterious appearance of flowers in a pattern that some have interpreted as not naturally occurring. The event unfolded on the evening of December 29th, 1974, when Travis claimed to have encountered a hovering, illuminated object while driving near his home in Dade City. According to Travis, the UFO was a classic saucer-shaped craft emitting a series of colorful lights. Startled by the sight, he stopped his car to watch the craft, which he reported hovered for several minutes before departing at a high speed. The following day, Travis returned to the site where he had seen the UFO and discovered a circular pattern of freshly spreaded flowers in the area where the craft had been. The flowers, reportedly not there the previous day, appeared to have grown overnight, which seemed biologically impossible. These flowers were arranged in a distinct pattern, which further fueled speculation that their sudden appearance was linked to the UFO. This case attracted the attention of local media and UFO investigators, who documented the site and collected samples of the flowers. Analysis of the site and the vegetation did not conclusively prove any extraterrestrial involvement, but the rapid growth of the flowers remained unexplained by conventional knowledge. In UFO literature, physical traces left after sightings, such as imprints in the ground, radiation levels, or effects in vegetation, are taken seriously as potential real evidence of a UFO's physical presence. I don't know, man. Flowers are awesome, bro. I'm a flower guy. I'm a flower guy. Next up, we got gliders. So gliders might refer to objects or entities that move with a smooth, silent motion, often observed floating or gliding through the air without apparent propulsion systems. These sightings can be particularly mystifying, contributing to the complex tapestry of UFO encounters. Let's explore an intriguing, albeit less well-known, case from this category. So the Valençol glider incident, not to be confused with the more famous Valençol UFO encounter in France, involves a lesser-known sighting that occurred near Valençol in the early 1970s. According to the witness, a local farmer named Rene, while walking through his fields early one morning, he observed what he described as a glider hovering just above the ground in one of his fields. This object, however, was unlike any conventional glider Rene was familiar with. It was perfectly silent, with a smooth metallic surface and no visible means of lift or propulsion. Rene described the object as being roughly the shape of a large flat disc with a slightly raised center, much like a typical flying saucer. But what made it stand out was how it seemed to glide effortlessly over the crops without disturbing them, almost as if it were surveying or scanning the area. After several minutes, the object slowly ascended vertically and then sped off at a remarkable speed without making any sound. The sighting was particularly interesting to UFO researchers due to the nature of the object's movement. The gliding motion, absent any noise or air disturbance, suggested an advanced technology capable of controlled silent flight. This characteristic is often reported in other UFO sightings, reinforcing theories about extraterrestrial visitors possessing propulsion technologies that are far beyond human capabilities. While the Valençol glider incident didn't receive as much media attention as other sightings, it's still pretty interesting. Next up, we have the Silverman. The Silverman is a fascinating and mysterious figure in UFO lore, tied to an incident that supposedly occurred in Falkville, Alabama in 1973. The story centers around police chief Jeff Greenhaw, who received a call one evening about some strange stuff going on at a local farm. Armed with just his camera and curiosity, Greenhaw headed out to investigate. What he encountered has since become a classic in UFO investigation circles. According to Greenhaw, he came across a figure in the middle of the road. This wasn't any ordinary person, but appeared as a Silverman. The entity was clad entirely in what seemed to be shiny metallic armor, similar to what you might imagine a space shoe would look like. The suit was reflective like tinfoil, but it didn't have any seams or joints that Greenhaw could see. The figure's movements were described as mechanical and awkward, adding to the otherworldly appearance. Greenhaw managed to snap a few photos of the Silver Man before the figure bolted with surprising speed, which was at odds with its previously jerky movements. The photographs, while grainy and taken under less than ideal conditions, show a figure that is bizarre and is hard to explain, and the picture should be on screen. I believe this 100% because I saw a picture online, and because the internet tells me it's real, that means I believe it 100%. So next up we got the Long Prairie Cans. This is a strange incident. This one took place in Long Prairie, Minnesota in 1972, and like many other UFO sightings, it left behind physical evidence that puzzled those who came across it. So the story began when a local resident, Robert Johnson, encountered a strange object while driving on a rural road late at night. Johnson described seeing a bright, glowing object hovering over the field next to the road. Curious and somewhat alarmed, he stopped his car to get a better look. According to his report, the object was metallic, saucer-shaped, and emitted a series of strange noises before abruptly taking off at a high speed. The next day, Johnson returned to the site where he had seen the UFO, accompanied by a few other locals. To their surprise, they discovered a number of small metallic cans scattered around the area. These cans weren't like anything commonly found. They were sealed, they had no opening, and they were made of a light yet seemingly indestructible metal. Attempts to open the cans or even dent them with tools were unsuccessful, which added to the mysterious nature of it. The cans were collected and reportedly handed over to local authorities, who then passed them on to various investigative agencies. Despite some analysis, no conclusive information was made public about the contents of the cans or the material from which they were made. Speculation abounded, with some suggesting they could be some kind of alien monitoring device, while others thought they could be a form of waste or byproduct from the UFO. This one, okay, I know I was joking about it, but this one actually is kind of interesting and like scary how realistic it is, you know? Like an actual can left behind is kind of cool, I guess. I don't know, man. I don't know. Next up, we got attempted abduction by a lobster thing. The attempted abduction involving a lobster thing was one of the most bizarre and eerie takes in the annals of UFO encounters, highlighting just how varied and strange these reports can be. This one happened in New Brunswick, Canada in the late 1960s. So the main witness, a local fisherman named Harold, was walking along a secluded beach at dusk when he encountered what he described as an unusual lobster-like creature. According to Harold, the creature was roughly the size of a large dog with a hard, segmented shell and multiple limbs that resembled those of a lobster, but it moved with surprising speed and agility on the sand. Harold's encounter quickly escalated from curiosity to terror when the creature made a sudden and aggressive move towards him. He reported that the creature seemed to attempt to grab him with its claw-like appendages, which prompted him to flee in panic. He managed to escape unharmed, but was deeply shaken by the experience. And then, adding to the strangeness of this encounter, Harold claimed that shortly before he spotted the lobster creature, he had noticed an odd spherical object floating above the trees lining the beach. The object emitted a soft pulsating light and seemed to be silently observing the area. He associated the appearance of the creature with this object, suggesting a possible connection. So I don't know, man. Maybe this little crab is like a, I don't know. Maybe this crab is like a alien, bro. Next up, we got the Riri Carjackers. The Riri Carjackers incident is an intriguing and lesser known event within UFO and alien encounter lore, involving a particularly startling experience of an alleged alien encounter. This incident took place near Riri, Idaho, and involves a somewhat chilling tale of a close encounter that crosses the territory of criminal activity. So according to the main witness, a local named Jim Thomas, the incident occurred late one evening while he was driving home on a remote stretch of a road near Riri. Jim noticed a strange, bright light in the sky that seemed to follow his car for several miles. Initially just dismissing it as possibly a helicopter or a small plane, he became increasingly uneasy at the light because it appeared to get closer and it exhibited maneuverability that seemed unnatural. The situation escalated when Jim's car suddenly lost power, engine, lights, and all, and coasted to a stop. It was then that he noticed three figures approaching his car in the dim light provided by the now hovering object overhead. These weren't ordinary people. Their movements were oddly synchronized and they wore what appeared to be metallic suits, reflecting the light of the thing above. Jim described these beings as having large, unblinking eyes and a generally humanoid shape, but with features and proportions that felt unsettlingly unfamiliar. They communicated with him not through spoken words, but again through telepathy. That's what I'm saying, guys. If there are real aliens, they're telepathic. Anyways, they demanded that he exit the vehicle, and in a panic, Jim managed to restart his car and flew away, looking back to see the figures retreating and the light ascending rapidly into the sky. This encounter falls into a unique category of UFO reports where the interaction suggests a potential aggression or direct interference, or it was aggressive and bad. Anyways, that's the ending of Lair layer 4. Let's get straight into layer 5, guys. We're almost done. This is a long ass video. Long video. All right, first up with this layer, we're gonna be talking about UFOs with tentacles. So UFO sightings involving objects with tentacle-like features are some of the more bizarre and pretty intriguing cases in ufology. These sightings often evoke imagery of living organisms rather than mechanical craft, suggesting a biological or biomechanical aspect. And one notable case comes from Falcon Lake, Manitoba, Canada in 1967. So there's a man named Stefan Michalek who was prospecting in Falcon Lake when he witnessed two cigar-shaped objects descending nearby. One of the crafts landed close enough for him to approach, and as Michalek got closer, he described the craft as being a brilliant, fiery red and covered with a grid-like pattern of what he interpreted as vents, some of which emitted gases that seemed to reach out like tentacles. This craft also produced a noise he compared to fans or air vacuums, which might relate to the tentacle-like emissions. After the craft suddenly ascended, Michalek suffered severe burns on his chest in a grid pattern, nausea, and headaches, symptoms that pursued long enough to raise serious medical concerns. Another one happened in Aveley, Essex, England in 1974. So this encounter was reported by a family and several other witnesses who observed a large glowing sphere in the sky. As they watched, what appeared to be tentacles or appendages extended from the object. These appendages seemed to interact with the environment or move as if they were sensing the area around it. The witnesses described the motion of tentacles as fluid and purposeful, almost like an octopus moving through water. The object hovered for a period before ascending rapidly and disappearing from view. The incident left the witnesses feeling uneasy and bewildered with no real explanation of what was happening. I don't know, man. This is kind of weird, but I know what's even weirder is that I know there's one of you guys out there, whenever I said tentacles, got excited. One of you freaks out there got excited. Next up, we have the distortion theory. The distortion theory in UFO research posits that the presence of UFOs can cause perceptual, temporal, or spatial distortions, impacting how events are perceived and remembered by witnesses. This theory suggests these distortions could be due to the physical or technological properties of the UFOs themselves, rather than just psychological effects experienced by observers. So for example, there is perceptual distortion. The theory proposes that UFOs may emit fields or utilize technologies that directly alter human sensory perception. This could lead to witnesses seeing objects with varying shapes, colors, or movements that do not necessarily reflect the UFO's actual characteristics. Such effects might explain the diverse descriptions of UFOs and reported sightings, ranging from saucer-shaped crafts to more unusual amorphous forms. Another aspect involves reports from witnesses of experiencing missing time or changes in the perception of time, like we were kind of talking about earlier, such as time slowing down or speeding up during an encounter. The distortion theory argues that UFOs could potentially manipulate time itself, potentially as a side effect of their technology or as an intentional mechanism. This capability could be used to obscure their activities or to interact with the environment in ways that ordinary human technology can't detect. Next up, we got the idea that UFO sightings cause bad luck. So one of the stories that kind of involved this is from Felix Moncla, a US Air Force pilot whose disappearance in 1953 is often cited in this context. Moncla was involved in an interception mission over Lake Superior chasing an unidentified radar return. His plane merged with the object on radar screens and neither he nor the aircraft was ever found. After this event, his family reported a series of misfortunes, including health and financial troubles, which they hadn't experienced before he disappeared. Some family members and friends speculated that Moncla's encounter with the possible UFO brought bad luck upon them. But then beyond specific stories, the broader pattern shows that individuals who report UFO encounters often experience a range of hardships. These can include psychological stress, social isolation, or skepticism from their community. Which, I mean, makes sense, I guess, if you're telling people about aliens, but it's also like, what if they were telling the truth and they just got these bad luck, bad misfortunes? Alright, next up we got the absurd nature of some of the sightings is purposeful. The absurdity observed in UFO sightings has often been speculated to be purposeful, possibly serving as a deliberate mechanism by which extraterrestrial or unknown entities communicate or interact with humans. This notion posits that the bizarre and sometimes surreal characteristics of these encounters are designed to provoke, confuse, or divert the attention of witnesses and researchers alike. One perspective on this theory suggests that such encounters could be intended to challenge conventional human understanding or to test our perceptions and reactions. The unusual nature of these sightings might be a way for these entities to engage with us without revealing their true intentions or capabilities. And then by presenting themselves in ways that seem absurd, it might be creating a buffer of ambiguity that prevents definitive conclusions about their existence and purpose. Another angle considers the possibility that the absurdity serves as a psychological filter. Those who experience or hear about bizarre sightings might be more likely to dismiss them as figments of imagination or hoaxes, sources, thus maintaining a veil of secrecy around real extraterrestrial activities. In this way, the absurd nature of the sightings could act as a form of camouflage, making serious consideration of UFO phenomena less likely in scientific and public domains. Also, the absurd elements of UFO reports might simply be a reflection of the entity's vastly different cultural and technological context. What seems irrational or nonsensical to us could be perfectly just normal to them, you know? Alright, next up we got stick people. The phenomenon of stick people in the context of UFO stuff is kind of puzzling. So these entities are typically described as extremely thin, elongated beings that resemble stick figures, often reported in association with mysterious sightings or otherworldly experiences. Their appearance is markedly different from the more commonly reported humanoid aliens like Greys or Nordics, which makes them pretty interesting. So a true example of an encounter with stick people comes from an incident reported in Fresno, California, where a family experienced repeated sightings of these bizarre entities on their security cameras at night. The creatures appeared to be bipedal, which means they had 2 feet, and they moved in an unnaturally smooth manner, almost gliding across the ground. The family reported no direct interaction from these beings, but their presence caused considerable alarm and confusion. The footage captured was widely discussed and analyzed, but it yielded no conclusive explanation, leading open questions about the nature of these entities. The descriptions of stick people often include features that defy conventional biological norms, such as their impossibly thin limbs and lack of discernible facial features, which contribute to the unsettling nature of the encounters. Stick people are scary. I know I've seen those videos of stick people that are online that are obviously fake, but they are scary, dude. Like, look at this video. Are you not scared, bro? Are you scared right now? Yeah, you're scared right now, aren't you? Next up, we got the 1981 Phantom Clown Wave. So this is pretty interesting and fascinating in urban folklore. The phenomenon began in May 1981 in Boston, Massachusetts, and it quickly spread to other cities across the United States. It involved numerous reports of sinister clowns attempting to lure children into vans or secluded areas. According to reports, these clowns were often seen alone or in groups, sometimes driving a van decorated with popular children's characteristics and other motifs designed to attract the attention of young children. These mysterious figures were described as wearing clown costumes and makeup, exhibiting behavior that ranged from merely creepy to overtly threatening. Despite numerous sightings reported to the police and taken seriously by school officials, no clowns were ever apprehended, and few, if any, physical evidences corroborated the sightings. The 1981 wave is particularly notable because it predated the internet and modern social media, yet it spread quickly and created significant public concern. Schools increased security, police patrols were set up, and parents were understandably alarmed. The phenomenon was eventually attributed to mass hysteria as the spread of the reports seemed to fuel more sightings, creating a feedback loop that wasn't necessarily rooted in all like realness. I mean, this probably was just a thing from like, you know, the stranger danger panic of the 80s and 90s, you know, could be that, probably was that, probably wasn't actually, I mean, it could have been real. I don't know. Who am I to say, dude? I'm just telling you the facts, okay? My opinion don't matter. Next up, we got the Vegetable Man. The Vegetable Man is a peculiar and lesser known entity in UFO lore, originating from a reported encounter in 1968 near Fairmont, West Virginia. The witness, a local man named Jennings Frederick, was out hunting when he claimed to encounter a bizarre creature which he later described as the Vegetable Man. According to Frederick, the creature was about 7 feet tall with semi-human facial features but covered in green leaf-like protrusions that resembled vegetation. It had tendrils for fingers and emitted a high-pitched jabbering sound that Frederick interpreted as an attempt at communication. One of the most unsettling aspects of the encounter was the creature's ability to communicate telepathically. It conveyed a sense of deep sorrow and desperation, pleading for help and motivating that it needed help from the quote sawdust in Frederick's mind to survive. This encounter reportedly ended when the creature bounded away with incredible speed, covering large distances with each stride. Frederick was left bewildered and profoundly disturbed by the experience. He later speculated the creature could have been an extraterrestrial or interdimensional being. This is weird, bro. Seeing plants and like vegetables on a dude. I mean, poison ivy, I guess, but like. Next up, we got UFOs attacking ambulances transporting blood. The notion of UFOs attacking ambulances transporting blood is a pretty unique and specific scenario within UFO folklore, and while it's not a widely reported phenomenon, it has appeared in a few isolated accounts. These stories typically share themes of interference by UFOs in a medical emergency, but we're going to get into that. So one such account comes from Mexico, where there have been occasional reports of ambulances being targeted by UFOs. According to these stories, the incidents usually occurred during the night when ambulances are en route to hospitals carrying blood supplies or injured peoples. Witnesses, often ambulance drivers or medical personnel, describe how UFOs suddenly appear and seem to follow or hover directly above the ambulance. In some versions of these stories, the UFOs emit a bright light or beam, which some believe could be an attempt to scan the vehicle or its contents. While no concrete evidence has surfaced to substantiate these claims and no actual attacks in the form of physical aggression have been definitively reported or proved. The consistent detail among these stories is something. Maybe they're studying human biology, you know? That's what people think, is that they're trying to harvest this blood to study human biology, which would make sense, I guess, if you're an alien. Next up, we have UFOs and occupants fear the name of Jesus. The idea that UFOs and their occupants fear the name of Jesus is a pretty fascinating and somewhat controversial aspect of UFO lore, particularly among those who interpret UFO phenomena through a religious or spiritual lens. This notion is mostly discussed within certain Christian ufology circles, where experiences involving extraterrestrial entities or UFO encounters are viewed in the context of spiritual warfare. So supporters of this theory often cite anecdotal accounts from individuals who claim that invoking the name of Jesus during a UFO or alien encounter caused the entities to retreat or the experience to abruptly end. These stories are sometimes used to argue that these entities are not extraterrestrial in the traditional sense, but might be demonic or malevolent spiritual beings whose intentions are thwarted by spiritual authority. For instance, there are several well-documented cases where individuals reported feeling threatened during an alien abduction experience and found that calling out in the name of Jesus immediately ended the encounter. Praise God. These testimonies are often shared in books and spoken at conferences dedicated to the Christian perspective on UFOs. Critics and skeptics, however, caution that this could be, just a lot of like religious mumbo jumbo, which is possible, but I mean, this is just weird to talk about, But yeah, people think that if you say Jesus, it'll help you in a UFO encounter. Praise Jesus. I am a Christian. And then there's also one story with this actually I wanted to talk about before we move on to the next entry. So this story comes from Betty Andrisson. So this happened in January 1967 in South Abersham, Massachusetts. So Betty, a devout Christian, described being taken from her home by alien beings. During her ordeal, she reported encountering several types of extraterrestrial entities and undergoing an extensive examination. According to her account, at one point during her experience, she called out to Jesus for help. She claimed that the aliens reacted by pausing their activities and seemed disturbed or confused by her invocation of Jesus' name. Betty interpreted this as a sign of spiritual authority, asserting that her faith provided her with protection during the encounter. Anyways, that's an example, but also, how reliable is that story? Anyways, secret elevators. The idea of secret elevators connected to aliens and UFOs taps into some intriguing conspiracy theories and speculations within ufology. The concept often involves hidden structures or technology possibly maintained by governments or unknown organizations that serve as gateways or conduits between the surface of Earth and underground or underwater bases where extraterrestrial activities are purported to occur. So one popular narrative is that these secret elevators are located in places like military bases or within secretive facilities like Area 51. The elevators are said to descend to extensive underground networks where joint human-alien operations or research are conducted. This idea is often expanded to include claims that there are deep underground military bases that not only house aliens but also facilitate their movements to and from the surface discreetly, avoiding public detection and scrutiny. A frequently mentioned location in these theories is the Dulce base, alleged to be beneath the Arcuda Mesa on the Colorado-New Mexico border. According to various unconfirmed reports and a few whistleblowers, this base has multiple levels that can be accessed by elevators, where secretive experiments and collaborations with different alien species take place. Stories suggest that levels of the base vary in their functions, even from research and development of advanced technology to more disturbing activities like genetic experiments. Another aspect often highlighted is the supposed existence of high-speed underground transit systems, connecting these bases across the country or even globally. Bro, they got a whole society down there in the underground. Anyways, a lot of witnesses commit sewer slide. So imagine witnessing something that defies all logical explanation, something that shouldn't exist according to the laws of physics or society's understanding of reality. This alone can be terrifying. The fear is compounded when witnesses face entities or crafts that are not only unknown, but appear to operate with advanced or inexplicable capabilities. Such encounters can leave individuals feeling extremely vulnerable as they realize there are forces at play that humans might not be equipped to understand or contend with. The creepiness also extends to the aftermath of the sighting. Witnesses often grapple with the social stigma attached to UFO sightings. Sharing their experiences can lead to ridicule or social ostracism, which might just push individuals into isolation, and this isolation can turn sinister when the person feels that they can't talk about their fear or confusion without being judged or labeled as delusional. Some of the most chilling accounts involve involve close encounters with alien entities. For example, individuals report being observed or approached by beings with unusual features such as disproportionate limbs, large black eyes, or eerie expressions. And these encounters, like, imagine being in that, right? These encounters can occur in familiar settings like one's home, which makes their home scary. And all of this can, lead to depression, anxiety, which leads to, not good thoughts. Don't do that. If you're watching this, please don't do that. Next up, we have fake people. The concept of fake people in the context of UFO stuff often refers to beings that appear almost human, but have certain characteristics or behaviors that are just off enough to be unsettling. These entities are sometimes described in encounter reports as men in black, androids, or even as doppelgangers or hybrids, whose presence is linked to UFO sightings or other unexplained events. These accounts tap into really deep-rooted fears, like the men in black, for example, we were talking about, are pretty iconic examples of fake people. They're not real people. They usually exhibit smooth and pale complexions that aren't normally real or usual, and they're also always oddly robotic and emotionless. I don't really know what fake people has to do with UFO stuff. Maybe it's that one about the fake people coming in as social service workers. I'm not sure, guys, about this one. Sorry. Moving on to black dogs. A black dog is a folklore creature, but it doesn't really have much to do with UFOs from all the research that I did. There's an English folklore thing where they are guardians of death, and they bring about death. They appear at crossroads and deserted tracks. They're harbingers of doom. There's some, I don't know what it has to do with UFOs though, so I'm gonna skip this one again as well. I'm sorry, guys. I don't really know what else I can really do. Next up, we got the 1947 Brooklyn, New York encounter. The 1947 Brooklyn, New York encounter is a pretty much lesser known UFO event that occurred in the same year as the famous Roswell incident. This case involved multiple witnesses who reported seeing unusual aerial phenomena over the boroughs of New York City, including Brooklyn. On July 14th, 1947, just a week after the Roswell incident and how it captured national attention, residents of Brooklyn reported sightings of mysterious flying objects. Witnesses described seeing silvery, disc-shaped objects in the sky during the daytime. These objects were observed moving at high speeds and performing maneuvers that seemed impossible with the aviation technology known at the time. One of the most compelling aspects of the case was the number of people who reported the sightings. Unlike more isolated UFO encounters, the Brooklyn event was observed by multiple unrelated individuals, including professionals and casual onlookers, which lent a degree of credibility to the reports. Witnesses described the objects as reflective and circular, with some noting that the objects made abrupt changes in direction without any visible means of propulsion. The 1947 Brooklyn encounter occurred during a wave of UFO sightings across the United States, which historians and researchers later termed as the Summer of the Saucers. This period marked a significant moment in American history, as it was when the modern fascination with UFOs began to take shape, spurred on by the media's interest in the Roswell incident and other sightings around the country. This one is old and pretty, I don't know, kind of credible. I don't know, guys, call me crazy. Maybe it's just because I've been researching this stuff for way too long, but it's kind of credible. Next up, we got otherworld seen during the encounters are fake. The concept that otherworld seeing UFO encounters or abductions are fake is pretty interesting and complex. So one popular interpretation is that extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings might use advanced technology or psychic abilities to create realistic simulations or environments to interact with humans. The purpose behind this could vary. It might be to study human reactions under controlled conditions, to communicate specific messages or ideas in a comprehensive way, or perhaps to shield their true intentions in environments from human understanding. These constructs could be so sophisticated that they convincingly mimic reality, or they could be surreal and dreamlike to convey specific messages symbolically. Or alternatively, some researchers propose a psychological interpretation, where the other worlds are not external realities, but rather internal mental constructs. Under extreme stress or during altered states of conscious, potentially induced by the encounter itself, the human mind might generate vivid, immersive experiences. These can be interpreted as visits to other worlds based on the individual's expectations, cultural background, or subconscious fears and desires. This explanation aligns with how the brain handles other intense experiences such as near-death experiences or hallucinations. Another theory related to this is the screen memory hypothesis, where the perceived environment, the other world, serves as a facade or a screen to mask the more traumatic aspects of the encounter. This could be an involuntary psychological defense mechanism or deliberate manipulation by the entities involved, which we kind of already talked about at least a little bit. And with that, we're done with this iceberg. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This one was huge. I loved making this video for you guys. I really hope you enjoyed. I hope you all have a great night, get some great sleep, and sweet dreams.